Hunter protocol activated. Level up.
A catastrophic disaster twisted humanity into mindless zombies. No one had a choice. Those who managed to survive became prey. Among them, a pregnant woman desperately tried to hide from a terrifying stalker. That day, fate finally smiled upon her. The monster's attention was suddenly drawn away by a couple in the hallway. However, a horde of mutated humans quickly swarmed in. The man's girlfriend fell, and soon he became a gruesome feast for the filthy creatures. Blood soaked the floor as monsters completely overran the building. Trapped in this nightmare, the pregnant woman desperately hid, but she had already been bitten. Her body was already mutating. Time was running out. She had to deliver her child before fully turning. She shoved a piece of cloth into her mouth, silently enduring the agonizing pain of childbirth. All around her, the echoing screams of dying neighbors filled the cursed apartment. The grotesque mutation rapidly consumed her flesh. Yet she pushed through the agony. She refused to yield, bringing her baby into the world. 7 years later, this cursed place is still crawling with nightmarish beasts. Inside a dark apartment, a little girl trembles in the corner. She hears the heavy, menacing footsteps of a monster. Panicking, she covers her mouth, desperately praying to remain silent. But it is useless. The monster locks its terrifying gaze onto her. In a desperate bid for survival, she runs, but the creature instantly catches her. Its massive jaws open wide, ready to feast. But do not despair. This mutated beast will not harm her. It is actually her mother. They are merely playing a twisted game of hide-and-seek. Yes, this mutated monster is the pregnant woman from 7 years ago. The little girl is Chuckbach, her daughter. Despite losing her humanity, this monstrous mother is eternally grateful for her child. Later, Chuckbach can be seen stubbornly begging to go outside. Her mother firmly refuses. Heartbroken, the little girl begins to cry bitterly. She desperately wants to follow her mother and find Gumdoll. You might wonder who Gumdoll is, but the truth will be revealed soon. The mother tells Chuckbach to stay quiet, but her daughter's tearful expression melts her monstrous heart. She gently warns Chuckbach about the lethal dangers outside, but she solemnly promises that she will find Gumdoll and return safely. Later, the mutated mother prowls through the ruined streets, where monsters still roam freely. Suddenly, a savage beast lunges at her. She easily dodges, impaling the attacker with her sharp tentacle. The paralyzed enemy instantly collapses to the ground. The sight of this freshly fallen prey makes her mouth water. She ruthlessly devours the feast. The taste is foul, but her hunger is satisfied. After finishing her meal, she spots a desperate pair of survivors fighting against a mutant horde. One man desperately wields a torch, while the other aims a trembling gun. The mother finds these fools pathetic, practically inviting death by venturing out in the dead of night. Worse still, their glaring torchlight and echoing gunfire are only driving the horde into a bloodthirsty frenzy. Acting swiftly, she hurls 2 stones. One shatters the flashlight, plunging the area into pitch darkness. The second stone strikes the gunman squarely in the skull. After knocking the shooter out of commission, she viciously stalks toward the torchbearer. What happens next? Only the heavens know. Later, we see a lone man, wandering aimlessly, gasping for breath. He was brutally ambushed by rogue survivors who stole his weapon, precious supplies. Searching for a hiding spot, he suddenly faces the monster mother. She instantly launches her deadly tentacle. Shockingly, her razor-sharp strike halts in midair. By a twist of fate, this terrified man is actually Gumdoll, the exact person little Chuckbach had been crying for. The monstrous mother instantly pulls him into a tight embrace. Gumdoll drips with cold sweat, terrified out of his mind. He is completely shocked. Not only did she track him down, but she also reclaimed his stolen backpack from the brutal robbers. As for the thief who stole Gumdoll's bag, he is now hopelessly trapped by a ravenous monster horde. All he can do is scream in absolute terror. He meets a gruesome end, becoming a bloody feast for the creatures. The scene flashes back to 7 years ago. A younger Gumdoll wanders aimlessly through the ruins, desperately searching for anything useful. Suddenly, he stumbles across a working flashlight. Clinging to this rare treasure, he heavily considers turning back. He knows venturing further risks a deadly monster encounter. But grim curiosity prevails, and he steps deeper inside. As he navigates the desolate hallway, an eerie noise echoes from a nearby room. Cautiously, he creeps forward, his gun raised and flashlight pointing ahead. The sight is shocking. A limbless mutant crawls on the floor. Gumdoll has no idea what happened. Perhaps a stronger beast attacked it? Either way, danger is imminent. He quickly spins around. He turns to leave. But just as he takes a step, a strange voice echoes from down the dark corridor. He gathers his courage to investigate. He could have walked away and found a safer place to hide. Yet the faint noise draws him in. It feels completely out of place in this hell. What he sees is unbelievable. A deadly thread is aimed right at his throat. That alone is terrifying. But what truly shocks him is the sight of a bloodthirsty monster feeding a human baby. It is a scene far more startling than anything he could have imagined. This was their fateful first meeting. Now, in the present, that same mother slaughters monsters like they are nothing. He watches in absolute awe, incredibly grateful to have such a terrifyingly powerful woman as his wife. Suddenly, they hit a dead end. The only way to escape the relentless horde behind them is to jump right over. Gumdoll draws his gun, confident he can clear the path. But just as they brace themselves against the coming wave of monsters, something viciously yanks Gumdoll from behind. His wife instantly grabs his hand, clutching a rusted iron rod, jutting from the floor. She refuses to let him fall. Meanwhile, Gumdoll feels his leg being violently ripped apart by the beast dragging him down. This creature trying to devour Gumdoll is no ordinary foe. The disgusting monster is starving for fresh meat. Meanwhile, miles away, let us not forget about little Chuckbach. She sits safely at home, happily scribbling drawings of herself, her mother, and Gumdoll. She waits eagerly for his return, hoping to play together soon. Back in the ruins, Gumdoll hangs in the balance of life and death. Monsters above reach down to shred them, while the horde below waits eagerly for the couple to fall and become their next meal. Even the powerful monster mother struggles to hold on. Her hands tremble violently. She knows if she waits any longer, they will both perish. Finally, she makes a drastic choice. She releases the iron rod. As gravity pulls them down, her sharp tentacles whip out to grab another creature off the wall, slamming it brutally against the giant beast's head. The colossal monster is stunned, granting her the perfect opening. She instantly drives her razor-sharp needle deep into the vile tongue that was crushing Gumdoll's leg. As the severed tongue falls away, a wave of relief washes over her. Her risky gamble paid off. Now, they just need to survive the fall, wipe out the remaining swarm, and keep Gumdoll safe. But it seems Gumdoll has a different plan. He pulls her tight against his chest and crashes boots first into the beast's hideous face. Fortunately, Gumdoll's massive backpack cushions their violent impact. Surviving the crushing drop, he immediately launches himself off the creature's jaw, rolling perfectly to absorb the shock. Wasting zero time, he regains his footing, grabs his wife's hand, and sprints with everything he has. Behind them, the colossal monster screeches in, absolute fury at losing its prey. As they sprint away, the mother scolds Gumdoll for his reckless suicide drop. She yells that he injured his own leg to protect her. As the father of little Chuckbach, it would destroy their family if he died. Yet, Gumdoll only cares about her safety. He quickly apologizes, blaming himself for dragging them into this nightmare to begin with. Hearing this, the monster mother can only think her husband is completely insane. He just shattered his body to save her, yet his only concern is keeping her breathing. But mid-argument, a sickening sound fills the air. She is suddenly impaled. As a brutal fang pierces straight through her stomach, the massive predator has returned for bloody vengeance. This relentless nightmare refuses to let its meal walk away. Despite the gaping wound in her abdomen, fierce mother coldly calls it a mere scratch. But then, a second beast chokes her. Gumdoll, desperate to save her, wildly rips open his heavy bag. He knows he has the perfect weapon to turn the tides, but he needs precious seconds. As the horde closes in, his wife lashes out with her razor-sharp tentacles, shredding the approaching monsters and buying him time. After a frantic, heart-racing search, Gumdoll finally grasps cold metal. Grenades! He pulls the pins and hurls them into the creeping swarm. They detonate with an earth-shattering roar, vaporizing dozens of creatures instantly. But the battle is not over. Gumdoll grabs even more explosives, raining hellfire upon the remaining mutants. The pursuing horde is blown into ash and burning debris. Yet, even though the lesser beasts are destroyed, the colossal apex predator still blocks their path. Panting heavily, they both pause, calculating their desperate next move. And in that split second, the monster mother makes a terrifyingly daring choice. She snatches a live grenade from Gumdoll and launches herself directly at the beast's snapping jaws and tentacles at them. Gull drops to the ground, his eyes wide in absolute awe as the monster mother pulls the pin from the grenade. With a fierce kick, she launches it right at the bastard's face. The giant monster opens its jaws, expecting fresh meat. Instead, the explosive lands right inside. A devastating blast completely obliterates the creature's head in a split second. Afterward, the monster mother flips the beast the middle finger, a sign of victory. Gull watches with pride, thrilled to see his badass wife handle the threat like a pro. With everything finally resolved, they retreat to a nearby apartment. Once safely inside, the monster mother completely removes her clothes. Gumdoll notices with profound relief that her stomach wound is fully healed. She playfully reminds him to always stay careful, as he is now their family's ultimate protector. With the chaos settled, they decide to find their daughter, who must be anxiously waiting. Reaching their apartment, Gull calls out, and little Chuckbach quickly rushes to her daddy. They share a warm, adorable hug full of love and pure relief. Chuckbach proudly shows her father her new paintings. Gumdoll gives her a thumbs up, thrilled she finished them. As a reward, he pulls out a sweet chocolate bar and offers it up. The little girl jumps in absolute happiness, overjoyed by the delicious treat. The monster mother watches the beautiful scene, gazing at her family with warm, loving eyes. No matter how difficult surviving this dark world gets, her daughter's pure smile re-energizes her soul. In that very moment, she knows that she will protect her precious family at all costs. But as the trio enjoys their warm happiness, there is someone lurking just outside their door. From the stranger's bitter expression, she clearly despises seeing this. Little family so content. Meanwhile, the family shares a warm dinner inside, and both parents feel a deep sense of joy watching their daughter eat so happily. Chuckbach then decides to share the food with her parents. She first offers Gull a bite, serving it with her tiny hands. Then, it is time for mommy to have a spoonful of rice, but the mother hesitates. The sweet girl insists she take a bite, but the lady freezes up. That is when Gull gently reminds their daughter that mommy is already full, but Chuckbach does not buy that excuse at all, especially since she has not seen her mother eat a single thing. Gumdoll tries to argue, claiming he has seen her eat plenty of times. At this, Chuckbach becomes genuinely curious. She wants to know how her mother eats, since she has never seen her do it before. The mother gently grabs Chuckbach's hand, trying to reassure the little girl that she does not need any food, so the little one should just enjoy eating it. The dejected girl sadly starts digging into her food with a sad expression. Later, holding a fresh cookie with a joyful, bright smile, she tells her mother that the cookie is truly delicious. She insists her mother must try it, happily sharing her favorite snack with her. Chuckbach keeps urging her mother to take a bite, making the woman feel increasingly anxious and unsure about how to reject her daughter without hurting her feelings. Eventually, the mother yields to the girl's persistent pleas. With trembling hands, she reluctantly reaches for the cookie, but as she does, Chuckbach quickly pulls the snack back, suddenly wanting a taste for herself too. She tries her best to snap the sweet cookie in half, but ends up with 2 uneven pieces. Chuckbach faces a tough dilemma. Should she keep the larger piece of the cookie for herself or give it to mom? Ultimately, she gives in to her cravings, offering the smaller piece to her mother, but once again, the mother hesitates. By the tense look on Chuckbach's face, it is obvious the little girl wants to eat the whole cookie herself. Not wanting to force her mother to eat, Chuckbach decides to just devour it all alone. However, she quickly snaps out of her greedy thoughts, remembering that she was supposed to make her mother eat the cookie. Gumdoll also chimes in, asking for a bite. But Chuckbach, too eager to enjoy the tasty treat, ends up devouring the whole thing, deciding to try again with another cookie. Later, Chuckbach is seen pestering her mother to eat random things non-stop. Eventually, the monster mother grows fully annoyed and firmly snaps at her daughter. Using her usual sign language, she tells Chuckbach to stop bothering her, asking if she enjoys teasing mommy so. Startled by her mother's sudden outburst, Chuckbach is on the brink of tears, never intending to upset her. She tries to explain to her mother that she was genuinely worried. She had never seen her mother eat anything, and she thought mommy must be starving. The monster mother, feeling the weight of her sweet daughter's concern, gently places her finger on Chuckbach's tiny palm, She finally decides it is time to reveal the full truth. She had been hiding the truth for so long. Seeing how it upset her daughter, she knows she cannot keep the dark secret any longer. With a Brady, taking a deep breath, the mother prepares to confess her dark craving for raw flesh. But the moment she touches her daughter's palm, her monstrous urges awaken. A drop of blood falls from Chuckbach's nose, and the mother's primal instincts scream to devour her own child. The scene shifts, leaving only the heavy, echoing slam of a heavy door. Gumdoll hears the slam and rushes to check the situation, but as he looks around, he finds the house completely empty. Chuckbach reveals her mother suddenly fled outside. In the wasteland, the monstrous mother is seen, tearing apart another creature. Unable to suppress her ravenous hunger after smelling her daughter's blood, she sprinted into the darkness, seeking to slaughter this beast, to chain her cursed instincts. Later, the family of three rests together, with Chuckbach nestled between her parents. The mutated mother silently reflects on how she never knew the sweet taste of a child's blood. From this moment on, she swears to maintain absolute control around her daughter, vowing to be her eternal protector. As dawn breaks, the father offers a warm smile before heading out to survive. He urges his family to stay safe until his return, reminding the little one not to wake her mother, who desperately needs her. Rest. Chuckbach nods obediently, innocently asking her father for a chocolate bar. With that, he vanishes, and as soon as he vanishes, a mischievous grin spreads across the girl's face. Knowing her mother is fast asleep, Chuckbach decides to venture out. She prepares herself and steps into the desolate world, casually strolling past a dead monster's corpse, without a flicker of fear. Wandering deeper, she notices silhouettes of other survivors in the streets. She then approaches a blood-stained wall, making a quick doodle. Her artwork finished, Chuckbach continues her journey, rummaging through the rubble of fallen bodies. After relentless searching, she finally uncovers a few rare candies. Absolutely overjoyed by her precious loot, she proudly imagines her parents' praise for securing such rare treasures. However, she hesitates, wondering if revealing her outside expedition is wise. Pushing the thought aside, she resumes walking, her next goal set on finding a figure named H. Meanwhile, two ruthless scavengers spot the little girl roaming the street. Shocked and thrilled to find a child in this wasteland, the dagger-wielding thug is already scheming. He thinks about extorting a massive ransom from her family, eagerly preparing to snatch her at any cost. His female partner, however, coldly points out the risks an orphaned girl holds no ransom value. The armed thug quickly brushes off her concern, reminding her of a child's high price in the black market. Swayed by greed, the companion entertains the thought of selling the child to a cannibal tribe for a high price. Honestly, the gender of this foe remains a mystery, or female, but let us assume she is a woman for now. Up ahead, the ruined path splits, and the little one swiftly vanishes to the right. The bat-wielding predator accelerates, desperate to secure her tiny prey. But little do they know, the hunters will soon become the prey. Someone wielding an axe suddenly appears, and without any hesitation, the stranger swings it, executing the dagger-wielding scum instantly. The lady stops and turns around, only to see a white-haired executioner standing over her dying comrade. Unfazed by the brutal slaughter, she turns to face this new threat, demanding to know their identity. She wonders if this white-haired stranger is the child's guardian. The white-haired warrior merely glares back with lifeless eyes, revealing herself to be a fierce woman. The ponytail foe decides to fight dirty, faking a distraction to trick the white-haired warrior into glancing behind. As the warrior turns, the enemy charges forward, swinging her bat with murderous intent. Finding the rear path completely empty, the ponytail smirks, convinced she has utterly outsmarted this lethal stranger by creating a fake blind spot. But little does she know, she is the one about to be slaughtered. In the blink of an eye, the warrior severs her throat with one clean axe swing. Glad this creeping threat is finally dead, we no longer need to guess the fallen enemy's gender. Meanwhile, Chuckbach stands completely frozen behind the wall, trembling as heavy footsteps echo closer. Ultimately, the tiny survivor is discovered by the blood-soaked warrior, but, as the child peers up, a wave of relief washes over her. This lethal woman is H, the very person she had been desperately seeking. Suddenly, a lurking monster lunges. H ruthlessly crushes it with her axe. As soon as the injured beast touches the sunlight, it instantly burns to dust. Lowering her weapon, H turns to the child, reminding her to always check the shadows before entering dark ruins. More importantly, she asks why the little one is wandering outside alone, and where her mother is. Chuckbach looks absolutely terrified, ultimately receiving a firm bonk on the head. H's golden rule of survival remained absolute. Always check for monsters before stepping into the dark. Always carry a flashlight or a weapon. Never investigate strange noises, and absolutely never follow anyone besides Mom, Dad, and Hira herself. The most absolute rule? Never go outside alone. Hira is frustrated. Despite drilling these survival rules into her for years, the child hasn't learned. She sternly tells her to never break these rules again. But Chuckbach quickly protests, claiming she is old enough now. Naturally, Hira delivers a deadly glare, instantly silencing the humbled child. However, since Chuckbach remains so determined to go outside, Hira decides to show her where adults go. Chuckbach's face lights up at the prospect of another adventure. Yet, her initial excitement quickly fades when she suddenly finds herself in a pitch-black abyss. Terrified of the dark, she calls out to Hira, but receives absolutely no response to her. Please. Once Chuckbach is terrified to her core, Hira finally answers, asking if she still wants to act grown-up. 2. Scare the child further, Hira reminds her that monsters thrive in dark places like this. Since adults come here seeking valuable resources, this place is always filled with bloody battles. Suddenly, the little one stumbles over something and falls. She has no idea what she hit, but when she lifts her trembling hand from the ground, her face goes completely pale. Her hand is covered in fresh blood. Reaching her breaking point, she loses all will to stay. She begs to escape, pleading to go outside, but her cries fall on deaf ears. She becomes teary-eyed and panicked, unable to see anything around her. The terrifying realization finally hits her. Adults come here every single day to fight for food. Finally, Hira reappears, reminding the trembling girl that adults come here despite their own fears, because survival demands it. Even grown-ups are reluctant to visit such perilous places, but their need for sustenance leaves them no other choice. She wants Chuckbach to burn this lesson into her mind. Then, she announces it is time to leave. Together, they walk out of the chaotic darkness, stepping past massive hordes of monster corpses scattered across the ground. Once they reach the apartments, Hira finally decides to part. She promises to meet the girl again when she comes outside with her parents. Hira also firmly warns Chuckbach to keep this traumatic experience a secret from her parents. Suddenly, the child makes an unusual request, asking Hira to sit down. When Hira obliges, Chuckbach gives her a playful bonk on the head, her innocent payback for making her cry earlier. Afterward, Chuckbach hands Hira a piece of candy she found during the adventure. With that, she waves goodbye to Hira with a bright smile and heads home. This small candy leaves a massive impression on Hira. She cannot help but smile, realizing the little girl has grown much stronger than she ever expected. It makes her believe Chuckbach will grow into a truly remarkable survivor. Meanwhile, as Chuckbach reaches for the doorknob, she notices the color of her finger has ominously changed. The scene suddenly transitions back to the past. During a harsh winter, Chuckbach's parents sift through frozen rubble in search of valuables. It is then that the father finds a scarf, gently draping it around the mother's neck. This warm gesture leaves her blushing, deeply touched by the thoughtful gift. As they share a tender embrace, they momentarily forget their daughter. The father calls out for Chuckbach, only to realize she has vanished. Meanwhile, the little one is off on her own adventure, exploring the ruins for anything useful. That is when she encounters Hira for the very first time, sitting on the ground, heavily injured. It is a massive struggle for Hira just to turn her head, but when she does, the very first thing she says is for the girl to get lost. But Chuckbach hesitates to leave someone so wounded. Hira shoots her a cold, menacing glare, attempting to scare her off. Yet, those sharp eyes fail to intimidate the child. Instead, Chuckbach curiously and innocently asks what getting lost even means. Confused by her reaction, Hira, now far more direct, tells her to go back to her parents and stop being a nuisance. But instead of obeying, Chuckbach grabs Hira's injured hand. She begins blowing warm breath onto her freezing arm to thaw it. Hira quickly uses her other hand to shove the girl away, but she stops mid-motion, struck by how desperately Chuckbach is trying to help her. This is how their fateful bond began. Suddenly, the little one wakes up from her nostalgic dream, but after a quiet moment, she drifts back to sleep. Meanwhile, her parents are hiding from lurking monsters, frustrated that the dark clouds allow the creatures to roam freely even during the day. The mother tells her husband that nothing is left here. Worse still, this was the absolute last pharmacy in the entire area. Gall decides to rest, but the mother refuses to rest for even a second until she can finally treat her daughter's infected finger. Terrified that the injury might be fatal, the big guy tries to reassure her, begging her not to be so hard on herself. He insists they will find a cure, but the mother only blames herself. She is convinced her daughter's condition is her fault. Gumdoll watches her drown in guilt, until finally, he reaches his breaking point. He sighs deeply, reminding her that their frantic search for medicine is getting them nowhere. They have scoured endless ruins for days, only to find absolutely nothing. He believes they were foolish from the start. Now, they must head to Hope Village to find a doctor. That clinic is their final salvation. However, the village demands a steep entrance fee to get in. The strict toll is their greatest hurdle. The guards only accept highly valuable, useful items in exchange. Gumdoll has no idea where to find such treasures. Suddenly, she begins tapping a steady rhythm on the palm of his hand. Her silent message sends shivers down his spine. Though the gestures are complex, her intent is chillingly clear. She plans to raid Dungeon Village for loot, but her panicked husband reminds her that the ruins are a monster's nest. Yet, the fearless lady remains completely unfazed. To her, the risk is worth the reward. She claims her combat experience will easily carry her through, as long as she avoids the dungeon's mass. Knowing this battle is completely beyond his own strength, Gumdoll agrees to stay behind with Chuckbach. Right before she departs into the deadly shadows, he opens the bag to hand over the flashlight. Shockingly, the little one is peacefully napping inside. Both parents rub their eyes in sheer disbelief. But the tiny stowaway is undeniably real. The shock leaves them dripping in cold sweat. As the little one opens her groggy eyes, she meets her mother's sharp gaze. Chuckbach freezes as panic sets in. Desperate, she tries acting like a cute magician popping out of a hat. But the trick fails miserably. She earns a swift bonk from her mom and a severe scolding from her dad. Her father is absolutely furious. This is the first time his legendary patience has completely snapped. Yet surprisingly, he is only translating the mother's blazing wrath. She firmly orders the big guy to take their daughter home immediately. With no time left to argue, the fierce mother begins her journey. Chuckbach desperately cries out, begging to know where she is going. She senses her mother is marching into danger. Just to save her, she pleads for her mom to return home, but the resolute warrior ignores the tears, walking her lonely path. She leaves the crying girl in her husband's capable hands. As the mother vanishes, Chuckbach is consumed by devastating regret. Gumdoll tries his best to comfort the heartbroken child, promising her safe return. But suddenly, the big guy's stomach violently churns. He desperately needs an emergency bathroom break. Rushing off, he orders the little girl to stay perfectly still until he returns. Left alone, Chuckbach's mind spirals into terrifying nightmares. She remembers the suffocating darkness of that cursed place. The thought of her mother facing those horrors alone leaves her traumatized. Meanwhile, the fierce monster mother marches onward with heavy sorrow in her eyes. She cannot erase the image of her daughter's tearful face. Guilt gnaws at her heart for leaving. Without a proper goodbye, she kicks herself for not checking her gear before starting this deadly adventure. While lost in regret, bloodthirsty monsters suddenly swarm around a flimsy cardboard box. They catch the scent of fresh prey. Something living is definitely cowering beneath that cardboard, as trembling voices echo outward. The beasts savagely tear the box apart, only to find empty air. It was our little girl hiding there. Her mother swoops in like lightning, snatching her away before the fasted beasts can sink their fangs in. Enraged, the horde charges forward, but the lady explosively dashes away, trampling the foul creatures underfoot. A beast whips its deadly tentacles, but her blade flashes. She severs them with effortless grace. The filthy horde meets a gruesome, merciless end by her hand. She slices through them like dry weeds, but her stamina rapidly drains. If this fierce battle drags on, she will surely fall. Suddenly, the little one thrusts her finger toward the heavens. The heavy clouds miraculously split apart. As blinding sunlight pierces the shadows, the monsters shriek in agony. The bloodthirsty horde scatters in absolute terror, desperately scrambling into the dark shade. Left with no choice, the mother charges into the dungeon. The nearby buildings will soon fall to the frantic beasts fleeing death. Suddenly, a massive monstrosity ambushes the mother from behind, leaving the child paralyzed by terror. Ignoring her agony, The fierce mother whips her tentacle to strike this fiend down. But this hulking beast possesses blinding speed, unleashing a devastating flurry of blows into the back of the reading, desperate mother shielding her fragile child. Suddenly, from the shadows, a heavy axe soars right over the massive beast's head, striking it down permanently. The bewildered mother cannot comprehend its origin, but she lacks the time to hesitate and continues fleeing. The scene shifts to Gall, arriving at the dark entrance where the mother vanished. He gasps for air, exhausted from his frantic sprint. The structure teems with feral beasts, and he cannot advance further to rescue his missing daughter. Devastating guilt crushes him, believing this tragedy happened just because he took a break-in, bathroom break. Meanwhile, the mysterious savior who hurled the deadly axe is revealed. It is H. She strides up to Gumdoll, leaving him in utter shock. He cannot recognize this fierce stranger. Before he can speak, she lands a ruthless blow to his face, knocking him down. Meanwhile, the monster mother fiercely scolds the little one for following her into peril. She burns with fury that Chuckbach abandoned her father's side. Yet, the trembling little one gently presses a tiny finger against her mother's palm. She confesses her overwhelming fear, refusing to let her get hurt. Chuckbach tearfully reveals she knows her parents' grueling daily struggles. Although they constantly hide their true pain, she senses their silent suffering. She absolutely refuses to let her mother endure more agony because of her. Instead, she vows to stay by her side, offering comfort whenever wounds appear. The weary mother's heart shatters, gazing at her devoted daughter. With a heavy sigh, she pulls her into a heartfelt embrace. Meanwhile, feral beasts already swarm their surroundings. To hide Chuck, the mother tucks her beneath her clothes and starts treading through the sea of mindless aberrations. They must escape this cursed building. She commands Chuckbach to hold on tightly, praying to avoid any fatal collisions. Suddenly, a lurking beast encroaches far too close. So close that the mother's instincts scream in alarm. She fights to maintain her composure, fully aware she must not react. If she falters, the creature will strike, placing Chuck in severe peril. She urgently whispers to the child to not react to the horrors. A chilling feeling strikes the mother, as if the beast whispers sinister words, claiming that what she does is a pointless endeavor. Yet, when she whips her head around, the phantom beast has vanished. She has no clue how it vanished so rapidly. Swallowing her dread, she presses forward, sensing the exit is nearby. Then, a colossal hand erupts to seize her. She evades with blinding speed, leaving the titanic grip to crush a cluster of lesser beasts instead. For a fleeting second, chaos clouds her mind. However, as her eyes lock onto this colossal hand, the horrific truth dawns. It is the Dungeon Master. This predator cares nothing for its own minions. It's blindly crushing anything in reach. The giant hand sweeps the area again, grabbing another beastly swarm, and tragically ensnares the mother. By sheer fortune, the Titan solely captures her, because Chuckbach had already safely fallen to the ground. Seeing her mother snatched away, Chuckbach bursts into tears. Yet, her mother orders her to flee. Surprisingly, Chuckbach obeys, sprinting wildly in the opposite direction rather than stubbornly remaining there. As the beast retracts its hand, the mother channels all her remaining power, viciously scratching the Titan's flesh. Searing agony forces the monstrous ruler to violently twitch, instantly breaking its crushing grip. As soon as she hits the ground, she dashes to rescue Chuckbach. Meanwhile, somewhere within the dark building, we witness a stunning monster woman, undeniably the true Dungeon Master. The scene violently shifts to Chuckbach, hunted by mindless fiends. She desperately tries to outrun them, tears blinding her vision. Tragically, her very next clumsy step betrays her, crashing down. A ravenous beast looms above, ready to devour her. Just then, another monster violently kills her attacker. This brutal display utterly terrifies Chuckbach. The other beasts freeze on the sidelines, paralyzed by dread. The apex predator steps forward, eager to claim its prize. The instant its foul flesh grazes, Chuckbach, sheer terror breaks her mind. She loses bodily control out of overwhelming, paralyzing fear, all while screaming for mommy. But this ruthless fiend simply grabs her, lifting her directly toward its gaping maw. Suddenly, Beast detects a terrifying scent, instantly spiraling into sheer panic. Not only it, but all the other beasts quickly start, sweating in pure dread. They stampede wildly in the opposite direction, fleeing as if facing grim death. At first, Chuckbach stands utterly confused. Suddenly, a foul stench fills the air before she can even react. A monster strikes her back, scattering her precious candies. A mutated brat leaps from the shadows, striking her from afar with a bare fist. The desperate girl reaches out to swiftly save her. Scattered sweets, but the beast snatches them first. This brat only seeks cruel games. Chuckbach pleads for her candies back, desperate to give them to her parents. The mutated brat merely sniffs them and devours one without hesitation. The cruel sight leaves Chuckbach shattered. Those were precious gifts, treasures gathered with painful effort, swallowed in seconds. Furious, Chuckbach strikes the beast's face with all her might, knocking the candy free. Boiling with frustration, she grabs his cheeks, ignoring the terrifying reality that he is a monstrous beast. Provoked, the mutated brat pinches her right back. Their fierce struggle spirals into an absurd, childish brawl. As they fight, it mirrors a mere playground scuffle. Ultimately, the battered beast surrenders to her relentless fury and flees in tears. Our hero stands victorious, solely relieved to reclaim her sweets. The observing beasts, however, freeze in absolute dread. Cold sweat drenches them, terrified that she crushed the brat so effortlessly. They tremble before her, and a single sneeze scatters them in sheer panic. Chuckbach remains, oblivious to their terror, until she recalls that wretched stench. She figures the brat's foul odor clung to her skin, driving the fearful monsters away. This sudden realization ignites a spark of absolute confidence. With all fear banished, she boldly charges forward into the dark, determined to reunite with her mother. Suddenly, a vicious grip halts her path. Bokchu overhears two lurking fiends, murmuring in the shadows. Deceived by her scent, they mistake her for the dungeon master's kin. Yet, her human nature baffles them. They deduce she recently crossed paths with the sovereign's child. Tempted by her fragile flesh, they plot to abduct her. The monstrous woman, named Dawn On, grabs the girl's face. Trembling in sheer terror, she begs the fiends to take her to her mother. Dion feigns gentle sympathy, only to flash a deeply twisted smirk, claiming she will be her mother from now on. They cruelly mock their prey, until Dion's comrade suggests sacrificing her to their father. But Dion fiercely claims the human for herself. The hooded beast quickly issues a grim reminder. Their mission is to help their father devour the dungeon master, so this child must become his bloody snack. Dion fiercely objects, demanding at least a severed arm as a reward for her hunt. The gruesome threat paralyzes Chuckbach with horror, while the hooded fiend openly drools, craving a taste of human flesh. Trembling endlessly, Chuckbach yearns for her mother, yet her survival instincts awaken. Refusing to become monster food, she acts drastically. She pivots rapidly and screams for her mother, creating a sudden diversion. As the distracted fiends gaze into the void, our clever girl seizes the moment, sprinting away with all her might. The monsters merely laugh, amused by her pathetic attempt to flee, but soon pursue her with purely murderous intent. As the deadly chase through the dungeon begins, they crash into a terrified horde of beasts. Chuckbach instantly exploits the chaos, diving into the frantic mob. The hooded stalker massacres everything in his path, though the bloody slaughter slows his advance. This buys Chuckbach precious seconds. Dion violently unleashes her tentacles, brutally slaughtering the trembling crowd. Amidst the carnage, Chuckbach sprints blindly forward, melting completely into the abyss. She halts and cowers behind a cold pillar. However, a foul predator effortlessly tracks her down, falsely promising to be her new family. Coaxing her out, he watches the terrified child reach the very brink of passing out. Suddenly, pure terror forces her finger to violently mutate. Thrashing wildly, the sheer force of her frantic strike cleanly slices the stalker's hand. Initially stunned, the fiend is overwhelmed by an agonizing, rapidly spreading, hellish torment across his entire arm. He spends his final moments thrashing in absolute agony, consumed by a terrifying, invisible fire. Chuckbach stands frozen in shock, blankly staring at her mutated hand. Meanwhile, Dion aggressively devours the lesser beasts. Oblivious to her comrade's brutal demise, she boils with pure rage. Paranoid that he consumed the child alone, she furiously craves a bite of that tender human flesh. Since she had never felt such tenderness, the thought of devouring the child was both thrilling and, it is maddening. The lingering taste and scent of the girl's skin on her hand make her salivate, but her excitement is short-lived. The mother monster has arrived, radiating absolute fury at the sight. One can only imagine Daeon's fate. Meanwhile, the hooded bastard still writhes in absolute agony. Consumed by flames, his agonizing screams echo around them, leaving the little girl even more paralyzed with fear. When the agony becomes unbearable, the monster severs his own hand to escape the burning flesh. The limb drops to the ground. Although the beast lost his hand, he is at least freed from the torment. But, blinded by rage, he plans to devour the child alive to avenge the pain she caused. But before he can strike, a devastating blow smashes into his back. The sheer force sends him flying, and he was struck by the massive bag Gumdoll usually carries. Chuckbach turns and immediately spots her. The enraged father marches toward the scum who dared harm his daughter. But before striking, checks on the girl and apologizes. He knows she was terrified. Suddenly, he spots her finger has transformed. He questions her, but she stays quiet. Instead, she breaks down in tears, crying that Mama was captured by monsters. Meanwhile, the hooded creature stands back up. Incredibly, his severed hand is regenerating. He is eager to devour them both. Yet, the beast halts in total confusion when he sees the father calmly searching his bag. He orders his child to stay behind him. The hideous creature is baffled. The man is completely ignoring his presence. This disrespect fuels his rage, so he lunges without hesitation. Before he reaches them, Gall casually hurls a heavy brick right at the monster's face. It strikes with brutal force. But the assault is not over. The fearless father grips a second brick, ready to crush his skull. The furious beast charges forward, while Gall stands ready to unleash the brick with blinding speed. He throws it with deadly force, but the monster violently shatters it mid-air with his bare hand. But that brick was merely a decoy. Dozens more instantly swarm him, leaving him almost no time to deflect them. Guarding his body, he takes the crushing blows head-on. Yet Ghoul refuses to stop. He relentlessly continues his fierce barrage. Each strike hits harder than the last, his power surging with every throw. He is determined to crush this monster for threatening his precious Chuckbach. Eventually, the weary father exhausts all his bricks. Seizing the opening, the beast snares Gumdoll with its vile tentacles, making it hard for the father to move. The hooded bastard smirks, thinking that since Gumdoll is out of ammo, this will be a simple slaughter. He tightens his lethal grip on Gumdoll's throat, leaving him gasping for oxygen. The monster revels in the twisted joy of watching his prey suffer. But then, he suddenly feels a chilling presence. Before he can react, H cleanly severs his filthy hand. The bastard's bald head breaks a cold sweat, realizing his grave mistake. H glares with menacing aura, warning the bastard to prepare for utter destruction. The monster hastily retreats, but H hunts him down with absolute ferocity. They clash toe-to-toe. He swings his massive tentacles, but she slices them apart like they are nothing. The father watches in pure awe. She cornered this beast using only an axe. He has already witnessed her slaughter endless monsters on the path here. He wonders how she still possesses the raw strength for this. She transcends human limits. She is a true monster, a total powerhouse. While the hooded beast fights, his mind drifts back to his past with Dion. An alien-like entity had once questioned both the hooded guy and Dion. It asked what separates beasts from men. Dion confidently answered that monsters are dumb, while humans are brilliant, the alien agreed, noting that humans are highly cunning and quickly adapt to environments. Yet they are far too frail. Monsters possess absolute strength, but act purely on primal instinct. In comparison, both hold severe, fatal flaws. However, the beast claims that he and someone like Dion are neither physically frail nor mindless. Instead, they wield the peak traits of both races. Not even other monsters dare cross their path. This perfect evolution makes them the ultimate species to rule this cruel world. He claims their cannibal tribe represents the chosen ones. He then warns Daeon and the 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬. The hooded bastard accepts this with proud gratitude. Both bow in agreement, and he even addresses this grotesque monster as father. He must be the supreme leader they wanted to offer Chuck to. The father then orders his two subordinates to eliminate the dungeon master's child, while he personally hunts down the dungeon master. Back in the present, as the fierce battle rages on, Gall spots the hooded bastard attempting a sneak attack. He quickly warns Hera, relying on her sharp combat instincts. She ducks under the lethal strike, then carves a deep slash across his stomach, forcing him to stumble backward. But even after enduring such heavy damage, the monster remains arrogant, absolutely certain she cannot win. just as his father declared. He proclaims himself the chosen one. He boasts she is powerless to stop him. While regenerating his wounds, he makes it crystal clear that everyone will perish here. With a ferocious roar, he charges at her again, but Hera stands her ground, unmoving. It seems she has no choice but to face this beast head-on. But before the fatal clash occurs, the battlefield shifts to Monster Mama, who is mercilessly tearing Dion apart. Dion is completely bewildered, suddenly realizing that this monstrous woman possesses piercing yellow eyes, exactly like her father. Why would she unleash such furious attacks against her? Furthermore, her overwhelming strength leaves Dion learning a painful lesson. One devastating strike from Monster Mama leaves Dion coughing up blood. Pushed to the brink, Dion finally decides to unleash her true power, eager to test Mama's absolute limits. Her writhing tentacles rapidly mutate, transforming into grotesque, centipede-like appendages. The sheer length and massive size of her monstrous limbs drastically expand. With lethal intent, she hurls her vicious tentacles straight at Mama. But Monster Mama is a seasoned warrior. Channeling explosive energy into her hands, she effortlessly severs every incoming tentacle in a single motion. It is painfully obvious now that Dion is desperately struggling to fight toe-to-toe against her. Meanwhile, Mama's terrifying power seems to have ascended to a completely different realm. No matter how many times Dion launches rapid strikes with her tentacles, Mama gracefully evades every single blow, further fueling Dion's blazing irritation. The deadly exchange continues, with Mama steadily dominating the flow of battle. Seizing the perfect opening, Mama finally closes the distance on Dion. Her razor-sharp strike is mere inches away from piercing Dion's face. Since evasion is utterly impossible, Dion braces for the practically lethal impact. She thrusts her hand forward as a desperate shield, barely saving her face from utter destruction. This relentless back and forth combat has taken a devastating toll on Dion. She can barely stay on her feet. Meanwhile, Mama stands tall, calm as still water. What terrifies Dion even more is that the gruesome wound Mama just inflicted refuses to heal, and a chilling numbness creeps in. At first, she failed to notice it, but absolutely none of her fresh battle wounds are regenerating either. Dread washes over her as she suspects Mama is using lethal poison. But this terrifying realization comes far too late. Now, all she can do is tremble in sheer helplessness. Pushed into a desperate life-or-death corner, she initiates her absolute last resort. She brutally tears off her decaying tentacle that refuses to heal, ruthlessly severing her own infected hand from her body. Then, she launches at Mama with feral desperation. However, Mama finds this utterly pathetic, having no patience for such childish struggles, since she must urgently track down Chuck. She decides to finish this immediately, but as Dion closes the gap, she violently sprays tainted blood from her severed limb. The crimson spray instantly blinds Mama's vision, allowing the cowardly Dion to desperately sprint for her life. Her primary objective is to reunite with her hooded comrade, Chungun. If they fight together, she might actually survive this nightmare. But unfortunately for her, Chungun is currently getting absolutely crushed by Hera. Having lost all of his limbs, he is entirely powerless to stop his formidable enemy. Meanwhile, Dion sprints at maximum speed, screaming out for Chungun. However, Mama has no intention of letting her prey escape so easily. Burning with maternal fury, she is absolutely not backing down until she reclaims her precious daughter, whom she believes was stolen by these vile scumbags. The intense scene cuts back to a brutally battered Chungun. While his physical body is shattered, his arrogant pride suffers even more. He simply cannot digest the humiliating reality of being destroyed by a mere human, a creature he always viewed as an insignificant insect. Hera clearly sees the utter disbelief carved into the bastard's face. She knows exactly what he is thinking. How could a fragile human, supposedly weaker than a monster, completely overpower him? She coldly delivers the harsh truth. She was never weaker than him. Without a shred of mercy, she violently crushes the bastard's head against the ground. A sickening splatter echoes through the silent ruins, but shocking as it is, that gruesome sound did not come from Hera's devastating smash. It was actually the twisted monster plunging his own hand straight through his own chest. Driven by pure arrogance, he believes suicide is a far more honorable demise than falling by the sword of this inferior human. He dies with absolute certainty that his father will mercilessly avenge him. With that final thought, his life completely fades away on the spot. Right at that dreadful moment, Dion stumbles into the area, only to freeze in pure devastation upon seeing Changgun's lifeless corpse. But before she can even process this agonizing loss, a vicious whip slashes her back. It is none other than Mama, whose one brutal blow was enough to knock her out cold. Chuckbach beams with joy upon seeing her mother. Even the husband looks deeply relieved, but their smiles vanish as H charges at Mama. Monster Mama, completely baffled, has no clue who this woman is. Still, she shifts into a combat stance, ready to crush the immediate threat before things can spiral into an absolute bloodbath. Gall swiftly grabs both of Hira's hands. He firmly orders her not to even dream of touching his wife. As H struggles against the giant's iron grip, Mama stares in total shock. Seeing her husband here, she feels fierce annoyance and deep passion. She demands to know why he entered when ordered to wait outside. But the giant makes his stance clear. With his family in grave danger, he refuses to just sit back and do nothing. While the giant struggles to restrain H, little Chuckbach sprints toward her mother. With her tiny steps, she reminds her mother that she tried her hardest to flee the monster, exactly as instructed. Seeing her brave child safe brings heavy tears to Monster Mama's eyes. They share a passionate, desperate embrace. This tender reunion vividly illuminates the grim area with pure warmth. Even the giant man cannot mask his emotions, standing on the brink of tears. This touching display leaves H.A. bit creeped out. Amidst their heartfelt reunion, H spots Chuckbach's mutated finger. The grim sight ignites a blazing fury. Deep within her soul, she unleashes a harsh tirade, fiercely scolding the parents for failing to protect their child. She believes their reckless negligence caused this tragic fate. Worse yet, they remained completely blind to the grim mutation within their own daughter, fueling her immense rage. Just as she hurls these piercing words at Monster, Mama, Gumdoll abruptly steps in. Unable to endure disrespect toward his wife, he firmly tells Hiro that it was entirely his own fault from the very beginning. She has no right to blame his wife. But Mama swiftly silences her husband. Using him as her voice once more, she expresses her absolute deepest gratitude to H for saving her life. She confesses her daughter's tragic fate is entirely her fault. Once they gather the necessary survival supplies here, they will journey to Hope Village for the cure. She swears to grant H a worthy reward for the immense kindness she has shown them today. Finally, she asks for Hun's name. H replies instantly, boldly declaring herself a loyal friend of Chuckbach. Naturally, an eerie silence washes over the parents. This warrior seems far too old to befriend their young daughter. Mama swiftly turns to the little girl, questioning the truth of this bond. The child eagerly nods, confirming the claim. The towering giant stands utterly bewildered, demanding to know how his little girl could keep a massive secret. The child quickly apologizes, explaining that H ordered her to stay silent. However, she passionately vouches for H. She insists the warrior is kind-hearted and truly protective. Her parents abruptly interrupt, and before they can fiercely scold the child for all her secret mischief, H confidently steps forward and silences them both. She admits total responsibility, as she forced Chuckbach to keep their alliance hidden. But since no true harm has befallen Chuckbach, there is no need to panic. Brushing the matter aside, she refocuses on their grim reality, advising them to hunt for vital supplies instead of wasting breath on useless chatter. With those parting words, she strides away, and the little girl trails closely behind. Mama silently ponders the undeniable truth. It was Hia who bravely pulled her from the jaws of death by slaughtering that monster. Once again, she faces her husband, using him to echo her unyielding voice. She halts H to demand one final truth regarding her mysterious identity. Who exactly is Hira? H stays completely silent, refusing to answer immediately. When she speaks, she coldly claims to be just Chuckbach's friend, refusing to let them linger. On the dangerous topic, she orders them to march forward. Time is a luxury they lack. As they depart, we catch a glimpse of Dion, miraculously clinging to life. Regardless, our party pushes onward into the abyss, slaughtering the undead left and right. Eventually they arrive at a massive warehouse overflowing with vital supplies. Chuckbach and her giant father eagerly tear open a heavy crate. Their eyes gleam with absolute joy at the hidden treasure inside. A massive stash of snacks, a rare blessing in this ruined world. The father hastily shoves the precious food into his sturdy backpack, confident that this epic haul will easily fund Chuckbach's treatment. Meanwhile, Monster Mama stands silently in the background shadows. Her mind remains deeply fixated on H's true identity. Mama senses that H is no ordinary survivor, given her terrifying combat mastery. Mama cannot deny the absolute truth. Chuckbach draws breath solely because of her. Yet, a dark aura surrounds her. An uncanny mystery about H Mama cannot unravel. The flawless way H moves, her lethal precision, and her chillingly calm demeanor. Every detail screams danger, but no matter how hard she probes, Mama cannot expose the truth. Regardless, after plundering vital supplies, the party resumes their perilous journey. Chuckbach joyfully rides upon her father's shoulders. Suddenly, Monster Mama senses an ominous presence deep within the tunnel and violently halts. Out of nowhere, two colossal hands burst forth, forcing everyone to sprint in the opposite direction. But the entity is terrifyingly fast, and escape seems impossible. To make matters worse, a horde of monsters stands, right in the hallway, blocking their only path. However, luck is on their side. These creatures are just as terrified of the approaching threat. The monsters turn tail, sprinting for their lives alongside the group. As they dash down the tunnel, a fork appears ahead. Unsure of which path to take, the massive hand suddenly zips past the big guy's right shoulder, completely obliterating the right side route. Seeing this, the chilling truth becomes clear. The dungeon master is merely toying with them. Left with no choice, they take the left path. Gall remains, confident that the exit is just ahead. The colossal hand relentlessly chases them down until they finally make it out alive, but the new area swarms with beasts, and horribly, it is a total dead end. Now, it makes twisted sense why the right path was blocked. Both women immediately take their battle stances in order to confront the looming danger. The creature standing before them radiates a sickening aura, appearing vastly more powerful than the standard undead. The fact that this beast possesses glowing yellow eyes makes it an extreme threat. Yellow eyes prove this monster possesses true consciousness and acts on its own sinister will. The scene then shifts to the past. We see the body of the alien-like entity Don called Father. It appears he has finally possessed the dungeon master's body. He already relishes the rich nutrients it provides, and it seems he will not need a new vessel anytime soon. As he walks, he ponders Da and the hooded beast, wondering about their whereabouts. Spotting one of Don's severed tentacles, he follows the bloody trail, soon discovering both the hooded bastard and Daon completely defeated. Daon, however, barely clings to life despite her grievous wounds. He approaches her and demands, "Who did this to you?" For a fleeting second, Daon believes the dungeon master stands before her, but her father quickly clarifies his identity, demanding to know her attacker. Daon weakly replies that a monster struck her down, one with yellow eyes, just like her father's. Back in the present, Mama breaks into a cold sweat facing the yellow-eyed monstrosity. Seeing her, intense terror, Gumdoll asks if she recognizes the beast. She firmly replies, no. As far as Mama remembers, she is certain this creature could not speak before. The only terrifying change is the sinister eye violently embedded within its chest. Suddenly, the nightmare rapidly sprouts grotesque, giant limbs from beneath its feet. Although Mama does not know this horror, the yellow-eyed bastard clearly recognizes her. He viciously demands she return the body she stole from him. Hearing this, Gumdoll asks his wife if she robbed the beast. Of course, Mama has no clue what the hell this trash is talking about. The monster, however, is not surprised that Mama fails to recognize him in his grotesque new form. Whether she remembers or not means nothing. He plans to slaughter her and take the body back by force. Just then, H steps forward, ordering the big guy to keep Chuckbach safe. She firmly tells him not to interfere, swearing to handle this herself. But before Hro can advance another inch, Mama abruptly stops her, declaring she will fight this beast alone. She cannot guarantee a kill, but she will risk everything to halt it. To do that, she must endure agonizing pain to unleash her ultimate trump card. Left with zero choices, she begins to grow, her fangs, which glow a menacing crimson. Furthermore, a deadly, razor-sharp needle violently erupts from her tentacle, which also radiates a blood-red aura. The transformation leaves her utterly exhausted, yet she forces herself to stand firm. Gall's jaw hits the floor seeing his wife activate her trump card. The danger is undeniably lethal if even her husband is. Freaking out, pushing past her limits, Mama launches herself at full throttle to crush the enemy. Meanwhile, an endless wave of monsters swarms the battlefield. H steps up to slaughter the mob, letting Mama focus entirely on the ultimate boss. The one-eyed bastard stares, utterly fascinated by Mama's crimson needles. It is the exact power he desired when he wanted to steal her body. He violently unclenches his massive hands, but Mama does not hesitate. She slices through his flesh like it is absolute paper. The yellow-eyed bastard's gaze turns pitch black with seething rage. He endured endless torment to claim this body, yet she destroyed his hands effortlessly. Now, his grotesque arms hang completely useless, as both of his hands suffer instant necrosis. Unstoppable, Mama continues her lethal dash toward the hideous one-eyed fiend. But just before she can land the killing blow, the beast whips out its tongue, ensnaring her feet. She freezes in midair, mere inches from her target. It turns out, the bastard intentionally lured her into his strike zone. Now, he revels in sinister thrill as Mama falls. Mama swiftly strikes back with her tentacle, but the fiend violently hoists her high into the air. He mercilessly slams her down. The devastating impact leaves poor Chuckbach frozen in sheer terror. The monster relentlessly batters her fallen body. The horrific sight becomes too much for her to bear. Chuckbach dashes forward to save her mother. Struck hard, the fierce yellow light in Mama's eyes fades. Drifting into cold unconsciousness, she plunges into a dark void. There, she runs aimlessly in the abyss. Tentacles suddenly erupt from her back. Cold sweat drips as a chilling alien sensation pierces her bones. She desperately fights to rip them off, failing at first. Finally, she tears the vile appendages away. But her absolute terror peaks. The severed parasite violently twitches and begins crawling toward her. It lunges. She braces for death, only to be forcefully pulled from the nightmare by a desperate cry. Her child's voice awakens her. The yellow light blazes again. Chuckbach bravely stands between them. Shielding her mother, the little girl points her mutated finger at the beast. She furiously yells at it. Trembling in pure despair, Mama desperately begs her precious daughter to flee. Meanwhile, nearby, 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 and Gumdoll battle hordes of beasts, forced to watch in sheer agony. Mama summons her last ounce of will. She must protect her child, despite her shattered body. The yellow-eyed bastard coldly stares them down. Looming like a grim reaper over the girl, his twisted curiosity peaks. He demands to know her true nature, human or monster. Her mutated finger catches his evil eye. He is desperate to know how she stole his flesh. What does this sinister claim mean? We will soon discover the dark truth behind this one-eyed fiend's rage. Defying his terrifying presence, the brave girl snaps back. She fiercely orders him away from her mother. Intrigued by this rare specimen, the vile monster makes a cruel choice. He will capture Chuckbach alive. He plans to rip mother and daughter apart to study their insides. 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 watches in breathless horror. The giant hand descends like death. Mama begs her to flee, but the stubborn child firmly stands her ground. Despite her overwhelming terror, she refuses to back down. She will protect her beloved mother at all costs. Her daughter's unyielding courage sparks a raging inferno within Mama. A fierce maternal instinct awakens. She embraces her child with all her remaining strength, ready to face death. The giant hand strikes. A devastating impact shatters the ground. 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 and Gumdoll are completely paralyzed in absolute disbelief. The beast snickers, tasting sweet revenge. But taking down an awakened mother is never that simple. She retaliates with blinding speed. The yellow-eyed fiend is ruthlessly battered from every unseen angle. Black blood violently splatters as relentless strikes shred his flesh. After delivering the lethal barrage, Mama leaps to safety. The monster is utterly obliterated, its entire body reduced to a mangled, fleshy ruin. Its flesh melts away like gruesome butter. Gumdoll stares in pure shock, witnessing a terrifying, unknown power. He has never seen such might. Mama has achieved a legendary awakening, summoning 2 terrifying crimson whips. Red needles gleam on her deadly weapons. Meanwhile, in the dark shadows, hordes of low-level beasts panic. They flee for their miserable lives. A sinister, violent brat relentlessly stalks them from the deep darkness. He demands they play his twisted games, but none dare entertain this chaotic, bloodthirsty child of ruin. Back at the brutal battlefield, the yellow-eyed monster completely loses his mind over his destroyed new body. His precious, newly stolen vessel lies in ruins, fueling his blazing wrath. He once claimed to hold back, but now, boiling with murderous rage, the gloves are off. He violently launches his colossal hands again. Yet, shockingly, his target is not our heroes. His massive hands blindly snatch up hordes of nearby beasts. He greedily devours them alive in a gruesome, twisted feast. The terrified party watches in utter confusion. What twisted scheme is this nightmare plotting? The horrifying truth soon reveals itself in plain sight. Cannibalizing his kin, he regenerates his mangled flesh. He mutates into an unstoppable, colossal giant. Gall trembles, drenched in cold sweat before this towering abomination. Mama swiftly shouts her bold command. She orders Gall to grab her child while she fights alone, but the terrified warrior desperately wants to flee. Survival is his only thought. Sensing his panic, Mama gently places reassuring hands on him to ease his fear. Disgust fills the giant man. Feeling like a weak, pathetic husband enrages his pride. He solemnly vows to act, protecting Chuckbach with his life. Before she heads off, the big guy and the little one cheer her on to just kick the monster's butt. Mama flashes a smile and walks toward the beast, who instantly tries to crush her under its giant hand. The monster scoffs, finding it ridiculous that Mama would protect the pathetic humans she calls family. He reminds her that he also has a family. His children obey his every command as repayment for the immense trouble he went through to raise them. To him, this is absolute loyalty, but Mama refuses to back down. In a flash, she appears behind the one-eyed bastard, declaring that this isn't what a real family looks like. To her, it sounds like he is treating them as personal slaves. Without wasting a second, she unleashes her red needles, straight at the bastard, but the yellow-eyed monster conjures a shield of flesh just in time to block the hit. The needles burn away flesh on impact but fail to pierce through. The monster then swings his massive hand, but, as it connects with Mama, she sinks her fangs deep into his hand. The flesh around her brutal bite begins to burn away. She fiercely pierces the monster's hand wherever she can. Suddenly, the beast grabs her foot, with his fleshy hand, clenching it into a fist to crush her mobility. The furious monster, seeing that she has ruined his arm, decides to make her pay. He tightens his grip, determined to shatter her bones and organs. As the pressure intensifies, the agonizing pain becomes unbearable. Poor Mama feels herself losing consciousness. Suddenly, the monster tumbles to its knees, miraculously losing its grip on Mama. It turns out his leg has been cleanly sliced off. The one responsible is none other than H. She quickly yells at Mama to run while she buys them time. But fate has other plans. Mama gets right back up and fiercely launches herself at the monster, and H follows suit, both attacking with deadly precision and skill. Gumdoll watches in absolute awe as these equally skilled fighters take on the monster with perfect finesse. He has no doubt that victory is in the bag. But, just when things could not get stranger, the familiar voice of that annoying kid who just wants to play echoes through the battlefield. Chuckbach is left in shock, recognizing the unmistakable voice of the brat who stole her candies. Meanwhile, Mama gives her absolute all to protect her daughter. H, on the other hand, is fiercely torn. Should she keep fighting or take Chuckbach and escape? She knows abandoning these two warriors might lead to their deaths, but it would guarantee Chuckbach's safety. Despite her internal conflict, H remains absolutely determined to destroy this piece of trash. Mama shares the exact same fury toward the bastard. Both share one single thought. They will shred this monster into pieces and survive this nightmare together. But the beast transforms into its absolute form, growing even more massive and terrifying. After this dark evolution, the yellow-eyed bastard is convinced they will all meet a meaningless death by his hands, and he is absolutely certain of his victory. Now, looking at the brat, he is equally surprised to see Chuckbach there. Gumdoll picks up a strange scent radiating from the monster, while Chuckbach warns her father that the beast can stretch its arms out to strike. Gull looks visibly unsettled, noticing how furiously angry this little brat is. And why? Wouldn't he be raging? After all, he was just beaten by our girl like a helpless child. Our little girl, equally annoyed to see him, boldly sticks her tongue out to tease him. This sends the brat into a wild rage, and he charges straight at her. Gull quickly scoops up his daughter, trying to shoo the kid away, but to his surprise, the brat stops dead in his tracks and even staggers backward. Gull is taken aback by this bizarre sight. To think that this monstrous child is staggering back from a simple leg gesture, it makes him seriously wonder if this arrogant brat is actually weak after all. But something does not add up. If he were weak, he would have fled like the others. Gull cannot figure out why the kid came back. Suddenly, the brat's eyes lock onto the nearby commotion, and he is left in awe when he sees his mother. As we know, he is the child of the dungeon master. Even Gull can sense the dark shift in the brat's mood. Something has changed, and it spells disaster. Meanwhile, in the thick of battle, as the dust finally settles, it becomes devastatingly clear that H has lost. She is down, unable to fight, and Mama is, barely holding on, pushed to her absolute breaking point. The one-eyed bastard grabs Mama. He sneers, letting her know that no matter her sacrifices for her family, or whatever hidden power she possesses, none of it matters now. He will make sure she feels true despair before the end. He opens his filthy mouth, ready to completely devour Mama. But before he can, everyone's attention shifts to Gall, who is hoisting the brat up in his hand. Voice booming loudly, Gall threatens the beast. He declares that if his wife is not released immediately, the child will face grave danger. The yellow-eyed beast recognizes this kid as the dungeon master's child, but fails to grasp what of life Gall aims to achieve. With absolute resolve, Gall makes his deadly intentions crystal clear. His firm voice states he is holding the child hostage. If that creepy bastard wants the boy to live, he must free his wife right now. But the monster merely scoffs, mocking Gall's futile threat. He is not the true dungeon master, so why should he care about that? Brat? But the one-eyed bastard is completely wrong. Suddenly, his twisted finger twitches on its own. As the noisy boy continues screaming, the dungeon master's will begins to control her own body. The one-eyed monster can feel his dark power. Slipping away, the child and the dungeon master lock eyes. In that fleeting moment, their minds rapidly flash back to the past. The mother recalls the deep, boundless love she gave her child. The memories overwhelm her soul, and tears rapidly spill from her eyes. The yellow-eyed bastard finds this totally unfathomable. How could mere trivial emotion break his absolute control? The entire host body violently begins to resist the one-eyed parasite. He realizes the child's cries are agitating the host body. Slowly, the giant hand holding Mama fully loses its crushing grip, letting her fall. Pushing his dark willpower, the one-eyed bastard controls the hand and tries to strike back with his lethal claws. But before they connect, an axe thrown by H viciously crashes into his demonic hand. This gives Mama the perfect opening to strike. She delivers a devastating slash across the bastard's chest, just enough to render the host body completely useless. Gumdoll watches in awe as his wife pulls off the impossible, and H is just as amazed. Meanwhile, their little girl is absolutely thrilled, cheering loudly as her mother completely dominates the monster. But Mama knows the fierce battle isn't over. She prepares another deadly strike, aiming right for the yellow-eyed parasite. Mama's hand, but mere pain will not stop her. She charges back in, her venomous claws aim to brutally finish off the bastard. Yet just before her lethal claws strike, Daeon bursts out, shielding her father in the nick of time. Mama, caught totally off guard, never expected this foe to still be alive. Before she can even react, a blazing pain rips through her tentacles. She has clearly pushed far past her limits. The overwhelming strain shatters her, and she begins to collapse helplessly. Victory was right at her fingertips. She was seconds away from ending her fierce enemy, but she falters at the bitter end. As she drops, the dungeon master's lifeless shell also begins to crumble, especially since there, which is no host to sustain it. Both bodies crash heavily into the ground simultaneously. Later, as the dust settles, Gall and his daughter rush to find Mama. To their absolute shock, their giga-chad of a lady is standing tall right in front of them. Mama glares down at the dungeon master's lifeless corpse. She is furious about missing the parasite, but at the very same time, she is relieved this deadly fight is finally over. However, a chilling truth soon emerges. The dungeon master has not perished yet. She remains alive, though utterly drained. Seeing this, Mama takes the perfect opportunity to permanently get rid of the dungeon master for good. This kill will finally secure the required supplies from this hellish place. She slowly inches her menacing flound, deadly claws closer to end it all. But just as her killing blow descends, she is suddenly halted by the round weeping child. He stands in tears, seeing his mom lying helpless and nearly lifeless on the ground. The battered mother and child desperately try to speak with one another. Their broken voices echo with immense pain and love. All the while, the party witnesses this tragic, heart-wrenching reunion between mother and child. The young boy suddenly bursts into agonizing tears, crying out for his beloved mother to live. Witnessing this, Mama's fierce resolve wavers, and she yields. No one truly grasps the profound bond between a mother and child better than she does. But just as we start to believe she is showing mercy, Mama suddenly impales the dungeon master with her venomous needle. This leaves the terrified brat utterly devastated, bawling his eyes out. The helpless boy could do nothing but pound his tiny fists against Mama. Even Chuckbach looks horrified by this heart-wrenching scene. But his father gently steps in, reassuring the boy that there is nothing to fear. Mommy is actually trying to help. Gumdoll is absolutely right. Beneath her terrifying attack, she was, indeed, saving the fallen mother. After absorbing the potent injection Mama delivered, the dungeon master suddenly wakes up, and the first instinct is calling for her precious son. Crying uncontrollably, the child throws his arms wide and rushes to hug his mother with all his fragile heart. Mama's cold exterior melts upon seeing this. She realizes that although this woman is a terrifying monster, they are not so different, just a mother willing to love her child like anyone else. Her daughter calls out. As she turns, Chuckbach embraces her tightly. Now that the group is safe, they decide to head home. They silently depart the area, while Chuckbach waves a final goodbye to the brat. The brat returns her farewell gesture. Later, Dion walks beside her father. She hesitantly asks why he spared the dungeon master. Her father coldly replies, "He has drained enough nutrients. His sights are now set on Mama and the little girl. He only needs to reclaim his body to be complete. He will no longer rely on absorbing power from others." He orders her to command the cannibal tribe's siblings to capture the mother and daughter. Later, the party navigates desolate, monster-infested streets. They tread as silently as possible through the terrifying horde. Hero is gravely injured, dripping fresh blood. The roaming beasts quickly catch her scent, entering a bloodthirsty frenzy. But before chaos erupts, they finally breach the safety of their apartment. Relief washes over them. Mama is incredibly thankful. Everyone survived, but Gall realizes Hira is missing. Panic sets in as they call her name. We see Hira lying unconscious in the corridor. Later, her eyes flutter open. The first sight is Chuckbach's terrified face. The poor girl is sick with worry. In her frantic state, she fails to realize shaking Hira causes more pain. Hira finally rises, revealing her incredibly muscular physique. She bears the rugged build of a true warrior, alongside prominent curves. Just then, Mama peeks through the doorway. Gumdoll is thrilled Hira is awake. He eagerly invites her to eat the freshly prepared noodles. The meal looks divine. The large man sheds genuine tears as he vigorously slurps the savory broth. He cannot remember his last proper feast. Meanwhile, Mama sits in annoyed silence. She is likely frustrated, because she cannot partake. Before taking a single bite, Hira realizes her current clothes are not her own. Chuckbach explains they washed her gear, offering her mother's garments. Hira finds the attire painfully childish. Gumdoll, however, cannot look away from her chiseled muscles. He had never noticed them beneath her heavy jacket. Judging by her countless battle scars, she is clearly no ordinary survivor. It suddenly makes perfect sense how she fought with the mastery of a seasoned veteran. As Chuckbach clings tightly, Hira notices her mutated finger. The strange claw has shortened, but she stays silent and resumes her meal. The little girl happily scampers off to play. Once Chuckbach is out of earshot, Hira questions the shrinking claw. She demands to know if someone clipped the mutation. Gall quickly clarifies the change happened yesterday. They hope to uncover the truth once they reach the village. However, he fears the cannibal tribe will hunt his wife and daughter on the road. Even upon arrival, safety is an illusion. Desperation pushing him forward, he prepares to ask Hiro for a vital favor. He pleads for her escort to Hope Village. He quickly promises substantial compensation, swearing that they will pay her with everything they have. In exchange, she only needs to protect his family and Chuckbach during the perilous journey. Flashing a hopeful smile, he offers her a second helping. She snatches the bowl instantly, seemingly agreeing to the escort mission, but her compliance is just a cruel tease to crush his expectations. She coldly declares that saving them in the dungeon does not forge a sudden camaraderie. They should not flatter themselves. She absolutely does not care if they live or die. She refuses to be their shield. She will travel with them, but only to protect Chuckbach. The rest must fend for their own lives. Resigned, the large man accepts this harsh reality. His wife immediately protests, questioning how he can survive alone. He softly reassures her, projecting absolute confidence in his ability to endure. She has no need to worry. Mama glares at Hira, deeply annoyed by the warrior's unrelenting stubbornness. She cannot fathom Hira's intense obsession, acting as if Chuckbach were her own flesh and blood. Suddenly, an angry Chuckbach storms in, furious at being ignored. Hero instantly agrees to play. Like magic, the child's fury melts into pure joy. But just as the tension breaks, Mama yanks her daughter away. Hira's competitive spirit flares. She fiercely grips the child's other hand, pulling her in the opposite direction. The silent war for the little girl's affection has officially begun. Clear. But this fierce rivalry is a blessing for Chuckbach. Two formidable women now stand, determined to protect her at all costs. While they exchange deadly glares, the poor father quietly finishes his meal. He is simply relieved that Hira joined them. Now, they desperately need a sturdy vehicle for 4 people. Suddenly, the scene shifts. Vicious thugs are hunting a blonde girl. She spots an open door and desperately dashes inside, only to realize it is a dead-end restroom. Her escape route vanishes. The ruthless pursuers breach the door, cornering her in the shadows. A true nightmare unfolds with zero chance of survival. But before tragedy strikes, our view shifts back to the main group. They are inspecting abandoned vehicles one by one, yet they cannot find a single working engine. After testing 20 cars, Gall stands completely stumped on what to do next. But Hira coldly orders him to keep moving, stepping forward without hesitation. The large man warns her of the looming danger, especially with her unhealed wounds. However, the fierce warrior refuses to wait helplessly in the shadows. Gall knows he cannot win this argument. Surrendering, he abandons his protests. He demands she follow his lead and stay safely behind him. But Hira swiftly marches up and ruthlessly kicks his leg. He winces in pure agony. Her point made, she tells him to guard the rear instead. Gumdoll limps forward, the stinging pain still radiating. Though he feels thankful for her aid, her sheer brutality makes him fear she might execute him first before the EV monsters do. Meanwhile, the mother and daughter share a brief moment of peace, happily playing in their safe haven, awaiting Gall's return. Out in the ruins, piercing screams suddenly echo from the hunted girl. The desperate cries erupt from a nearby complex. Gall snaps his gaze toward the sound. Instantly, Hira violently yanks him back. She furiously demands if he has forgotten their mission. Her patience shatters. She berates him for risking their lives for strangers when he said, can barely survive himself. With eyes like ice, she orders him to prioritize Chuckbach, or she will walk away completely. Despite her blazing wrath, the giant forces himself to speak. He pleads for her to hear his logic, but Hira's murderous aura erupts, barely holding back her fury. Meanwhile, the vile thugs bind the helpless girl in thick ropes. They initially consider unspeakable acts, but a cautious scum suggests sparing her. A living hostage could fetch a massive ransom of food. However, a cynical thug questions the plan. What if the settlement rejects her? Hearing this, the most twisted bastard chooses the cruel original idea. They will ruin her and leave her to die. Deep down, this monster prays the village, abandons her entirely, letting him keep her as a trophy. But fate has a brutal surprise waiting. Their wicked plot crumbles instantly. Gumdoll crashes through the shadows, instantly crippling 2 of the filthy scumbags. He unleashes a devastating kick onto the ringleader's skull. Seeing their leader fall, the remaining cowards sprint for their miserable lives. But true terror awaits. The fastest runner is suddenly obliterated by a bone-crushing punch. Hira steps from the dust. With killing intent, she commands them to surrender every single ration. But these fools choose the path of death. They foolishly charge at the warrior, only to meet absolute destruction. As the dust settles, the rescued girl bows. Weeping tears of overwhelming gratitude, she introduces herself as 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬. The giant gives a gentle nod, revealing his and Hira's names in return. He swiftly shifts to strategy. He admits he overheard the thugs, confirming she belongs to Hope Village. 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 quickly nods yes. Gumdoll's eyes light up with pure hope. His righteous instinct to save her has manifested into a golden opportunity. Saving a resident guarantees them leverage to heal Chuck. He smoothly mentions they seek entry into the legendary Hope Village. 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 beams with sheer excitement. Escorting such powerful saviors to her home is an absolute honor. She happily explains this was her very first scavenging mission to expand their reach. She never imagined encountering such magnificent warriors. She firmly believes the village principal and elite instructor will welcome them like royalty. Hearing those specific titles, Gumdoll freezes in shock. But in that exact split second, A surviving thug launches a cowardly ambush from behind, yet his pathetic strike is completely shattered as Hira blocks it effortlessly. Her aura explodes with pure, unadulterated wrath. Now, she is truly out for blood. Mistaking our duo for enemies, he threatens them to hand over Yonggi immediately. However, he is swiftly humbled when Yi intervenes. She clarifies they are her saviors, not enemies, and deeply apologizes for falling behind and causing this misunderstanding. The large man's utterly cold and serious expression softens into a smile. He claims her safety is all that matters to him. He then quickly apologizes to the duo. Gall stands bewildered, realizing this is the exact same man who just threatened them with such killer intent. Now he acts entirely friendly. Suddenly, Gall notices a chilling detail. The girl is shaking uncontrollably while addressing her instructor. Drenched in cold sweat, she trembles like a leaf as she continues her apologies. The eerie instructor drops his massive hand onto her fragile shoulder. With a sinister smile, he reassures her, warning her to stay close next time. The bastard relentlessly squeezes her shoulder, continuing to whisper his warnings. The terrified girl weakly admits he is hurting her. However, sudden relief arrives. As Gumdoll steps in, gripping the bastard's filthy hand, the two men lock eyes, radiating deadly aura through their sheer intensity. Judging by this sinister man's actions, a violent clash seems absolutely inevitable. H stands, completely ready, mentally dialing 911 to fight this creep. But as we know, pure violence is not always the answer. Our towering hero plays it smart. Instead of escalating the fight, he flashes a bright smile and extends his hand for a greeting. Instantly, the bloodthirsty, tension-filled atmosphere transforms into what resembles a joyful reunion between brothers. Gall smoothly lays on the charm. He loudly praises Yonggi, claiming he heard about hope. Village and felt moved by her passionate speech. He claims words cannot describe the absolutely fantastic job she did, promoting the village. Furthermore, she spoke incredibly highly of her amazing instructor, Yonggi. Knowing perfectly well that Gall is clearly exaggerating, decides to play along. When her instructor turns to ask if this is true, she quickly flashes a peace sign. She nods, confirming the large man speaks the truth. For a brief moment, this giant shoots her a cold glare. However, he soon returns Gumdoll's smile and promptly introduces himself. Introducing himself as Suin Beek, a Hope Village instructor. Taking control, Gall quickly asks Beek if his family can visit Hope Village. Beek is caught off guard by the mention of a family, so he promptly asks if there are others with him. Gall quickly clarifies that he has a wife standing right behind him, along with a sick daughter. He needs her treated in the village as soon as. Hira hears this bastard call her his wife. She shoots him death glares. Gall is absolutely certain he is as good as dead if he pushes it. Beek, however, confirms they do have a doctor in Hope Village. He is confident the doctor can treat her, but the catch is they must pay a hefty entrance fee. Of course, Gall has already secured the funds. That payment was the very reason they faced that life-or-death struggle in the dungeon. Beek decides to leave, eager to report this news to the village first. Promising to meet in front of this building tomorrow, he turns to leave. Before departing, Young-E suddenly stops, bowing respectfully to Gall. Ultimately, this hunt has proven to be a massive success for Gall and Hira. Now one step closer to Chuckbach's treatment, he happily turns to her. But she swiftly delivers a devastating kick to his leg. He collapses, writhing in sheer agony. Naturally, he instinctively curses at her. They banter back and forth. The scene shifts to Instructor Beek and Youngie, pacing a quiet corridor. Beek remains shaken by the sheer power of Gall's grip. He considered himself incredibly strong, but meeting Gall proved the man exists on an entirely different level. His wife is equally formidable. He is deeply impressed by her split-second evasion. Beek smiles sinisterly, realizing that both of them possess the exact talents their village needs. He cannot lose them. The village head will be thrilled to meet them both. His excitement makes the wait unbearable. When the next day finally arrives, Hero Ra looks completely annoyed. She is visibly frustrated that this giant gorilla has not finished packing. Meanwhile, the monster mom carefully wraps her little girl's finger, ensuring the bandages cover it entirely. To avoid being exposed, the desperate mother wishes to join their journey. Yet, being a monster, she simply cannot. She pleads with her daughter, eventually securing Chuckbach's permission to tag along. However, the group ultimately, Gumdoll quickly rejects the idea. The monster mother sinks into sorrow. Even Gumdoll aches seeing her. so upset. He quickly reassures her, promising they will return before she knows it. All she must do is wait. His wife begs him to promise his safe return. Without a single moment of hesitation, the giant gives his word, planting a tender kiss on her head. For a brief moment, the mother curses her tragic fate. If only she were human, she could travel freely with her family. Amidst her bitter thoughts, the father and Demi, daughter, share their final farewells. Even Hira, normally cold as ice, offers a warm smile. With that, they depart. Watching them fade into the distance, she desperately yearns to be human again, wandering happily alongside her family. But, trapped in her monstrous form, she remains behind in the gloomy apartment. Yet, she knows she has a crucial mission to fulfill. She moves with sudden urgency. Her exact plan remains a mystery, but the truth will soon unravel. Meanwhile, our trio boards the heavy van secured by Instructor Bach. Gumdoll questions if the doctor is truly capable. Bach instantly defends the medic's skills, calling him an absolutely essential pillar of their survival village. Gumdoll still harbors deep doubts, but he desperately prays this dangerous gamble pays off. For his little girl. Back in the shadows of the apartment, the monster mother strips down and focuses intensely. She can literally feel the vile tentacle writhing within her body. This parasitic mass belongs to the ruthless cannibal tribe leader. Now, his sinister demand to reclaim his flesh makes perfect sense. Far away, the cannibal tribe leader focuses his dark energy and pinpoints the mother's exact location. With his prey tracked, he commands his savage horde to prepare for war, placing Dion at the vanguard. Meanwhile, our heroes finally arrive at Hope Village. Upon entering the settlement's perimeter, Bach loudly instructs everyone to leave their heavy luggage behind inside, the vehicle to be retrieved later. Despite reaching apparent safety, Gumdoll refuses to lower his guard. He silently signals Hira to stick close. Naturally, the fierce woman shoots him an irritated glare for ordering her around. Gumdoll then turns to his daughter, asking if she remembers his strict instructions. She falls deadly silent. For a tense second before confirming she understands, the little one instantly initiates their cover story, eagerly, calling Hira her loving mother. Hira has no choice but to play along. Though visibly flustered, she forces herself to call the girl sweetheart to sell the lie. Gumdoll can clearly see, through her incredibly awkward acting, it is painfully unconvincing. The armored van finally screeches to a halt, and as the rear doors swing open, a massive crowd stands waiting to greet them. Gumdoll stares in utter bewilderment at the followers' sheer number of survivors. He demands answers from the instructor. Bach quickly reassures the warrior that this is merely a local tradition. The villagers are naturally curious about outsiders. There is absolutely nothing to fear, as the gathering crowd is completely harmless. Despite the hollow reassurance, Gumdoll remains on edge, while Hira looks deeply annoyed. The village leader confidently steps forward to welcome the newcomers. He introduces himself as Hungjun Kim, the man in charge, expressing immense joy at their arrival. Moments later, as villagers begin unloading the heavy cargo, one of the men heavily struggles with a bag Gumdoll normally tosses around effortlessly. This glaring weakness does not go unnoticed. The settlement pulses with life. Even Gumdoll cannot ignore the surprisingly warm, peaceful atmosphere. The old leader explains that this harmony is just everyday life here. He expresses deep gratitude that the weary travelers feel at home, a feeling he has deeply missed since the brutal apocalypse began. This sanctuary is built upon the earnest hopes and relentless effort of its people over the last 5 years. In the dark early days, survival was a brutal daily struggle. Thus, bloody conflicts were devastatingly common. Maintaining order was a nightmare. Yet, over time, the scarred survivors forged an unbreakable bond, becoming what he now calls his true family. Hira, however, cannot shake a chilling instinct. Something about this smiling elder screams deception. The old man smoothly shifts the conversation toward Chuckbach and her critical medical treatment. After walking a short distance, he gestures toward a battered room labeled hospital. He humbly admits the clinic looks terribly shabby from the outside, but swears the doctor inside works literal magic. Gumdoll bows his head in sincere gratitude for the saving grace, but the second the elder is out of earshot, he whispers his dark suspicions. Every single detail here feels horribly wrong. Hira also senses the foul tension lingering in the very air. The most glaring red flag is the absolute lack of security. The main gates are completely defenseless, without a single floodlight to repel nocturnal monsters. Furthermore, Not a single soul walking around this peaceful village carries a visible weapon. It is a utopia with zero defenses. In this apocalyptic hellscape, that absolute vulnerability screams pure danger. For now, 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 decides to focus purely on Chuckbach's treatment. They promptly step into a grim facility, supposedly a hospital. As they descend, the shadows deepen with every single step, trapping them inside a pitch-black ward. It feels absurd that anyone would build a hospital deep in this basement. While cautiously walking forward, Chuckbach suddenly stumbles over an unseen object and crashes to the floor. Writhing in sharp pain, she quickly realizes her obstacle. There's no random debris. Her eyes lock onto a faint, eerie red glow. Instantly, her raw survival instincts awaken. Her bandaged index finger fiercely throbs. In a flash, her nail elongates into a razor-sharp weapon, driven by pure instinct. She violently strikes, piercing this hospital ghost with her deadly nail. Before anyone can identify this phantom, beneath the heavy blanket, the scene abruptly shifts outside. Instructor Beck is locked in a tense discussion regarding our trio with the mysterious old man. He reveals this cruel test is merely a strict prerequisite for joining the ominous Food Day event. Beck expresses grave concern, questioning the fallout if the group completely refuses to participate, even after surviving the trial. The old man chillingly replies that they can simply be eliminated on the spot, harvesting their skin for use. He strictly orders Beck to treat the accompanying young child with the utmost care. Apparently, their mighty founder harbors a very special interest in her. The scene snaps back to Chuckbach, whose piercing scream instantly alerts both Gumdoll and 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬. The poor girl's trembling hand is trapped by the sinister figure beneath the blanket. He interrogates the child, demanding to know her actions. Without hesitation, he fiercely grabs the lurking blanket dweller, ruthlessly pinning him to the ground. Brandishing her deadly dagger, she demands the scumbag reveal his true identity. Ripping the blanket away, the hidden man is exposed, completely paralyzed by sheer terror. Shaken by her lethal threat, he finally musters the courage to claim he is a doctor. 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 remains highly skeptical that this pathetic coward is truly a medical professional. However, Gumdoll is soon seen bowing his head, apologizing for the misunderstanding. Yet, the doctor completely fails to calm down, relentlessly berating the group for their reckless negligence. Watching this utterly ridiculous situation unfold, the man lies asleep beside a childish pillow. Gumdoll never expected to cross paths with someone like him. The doctor, enraged by their sudden attack and his ruined pillow, sternly demands an apology from 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 and the little one. Both ladies clearly hesitate to obey what this arrogant man demands. He shoots them a contemptuous glare. Since 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 cannot currently to fight back, she swallows her pride and reluctantly apologizes. Naturally, these forced words of regret fail to satisfy the doctor. He orders them to leave immediately. While shooing them away, his gaze suddenly locks onto Chuckbach's finger. Something about it immediately captures his absolute intrigue. The moment later, he carefully inspects the digit. Following a thorough examination, he bluntly admits he has no idea what afflicts her. This utterly infuriates 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬. Grabbing his coat, she prepares to slam him down. Her sheer killing intent easily intimidates the doctor, prompting a rapid explanation. He states, her symptoms are exceptionally rare, appearing only when monsters bite victims or when monster blood enters an open wound. However, he notes she lacks any bite marks or visible scars. He has never encountered an anomaly like this. Fortunately, her body remains unharmed for now, but the physician cannot guarantee her future safety. For now, they must simply observe her condition while remaining in the village. Gumdoll then begs the doctor to keep his daughter's mysterious condition an absolute secret. Normally, would never hide such truths, but his own deep curiosity compels him to keep it to himself. The little one rests her tiny hand upon her father's massive palm, asking if he worries for her, or if her fate is truly dire. He gently reassures her, then steps outside to breathe the open air and try to have fun. While she plays in the sand, the two sit quietly. The giant is completely lost. In this grim situation, without a single clue about her illness, they endured countless trials just to reach here. He debates if telling the monster mama this grim news is wise. As the towering warrior begins to fall into dark despair, 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 stands up. She orders him to guard his daughter, reminding him that even in this desperate nightmare with no escape, he must protect his child from falling. This is a parent's true duty. A father's resolve awakens something deep within the giant. He slaps his own face hard, snapping out of his daze. Standing tall with newfound confidence, she asks for his plan. The giant regains his composure, ready to face the threat. They agree to forge a path by digging. As the two strategize, together, Yong-hee trembles behind a pillar, drowning in anxiety. To uncover her motive, we must rewind time. Earlier, the village chief commanded her to surveil the family that arrived today. Seeking absolute certainty they meant no harm, and knowing they visited the clinic, he dispatched her to gather intel. Ordered to report any grim details, she trailed them. To the doctor, discovering the dark truth of Chuckbach's mutated finger. Back in the present, she waits, when a sudden tap on her shoulder sends absolute terror through her veins. Whirling around, she finds her glaring mother. Yong-hee stammers a pathetic excuse about a midnight stroll, but her mother pierces right through the lie. She fiercely interrogates her about stalking the newcomers, guessing the chief orchestrated this shadow mission. Caught in the undeniable truth, Yong-hee freezes, igniting her mother's blazing fury. She screams a bitter reminder of her countless warnings. To never blindly serve the chief, pushed to her absolute limit, Yong-hee fiercely snaps back, declaring, every risk she took to elevate this village was her own choice. With burning resolve, she commands her mother to stop scapegoating the chief. She loudly asserts her rightful place in this community, vowing to earn true glory. She blindly believes that, just like her mother's past blessing, the chief will grant her a miracle. This blind faith completely shatters her mother's restraint, landing a heavy strike on Yong-hee. She screams that this so-called miracle is a twisted illusion. Unable to endure the ruthless barrage of blows, Yong-hee's spirit shatters. She flees into the shadows, screaming through bitter tears that she desperately craves a life goal. She begs her mother to let her chase destiny, crying that her late father would be proud. Those heavy words push her completely over the edge. Blinded by wrath, she violently hurls jagged rocks at her own blood. Yong-hee escapes into the darkness, leaving behind a broken mother who only wanted her safe. Truly, this supposedly peaceful haven hides a twisted, maddening darkness beneath its surface. Regardless, later that night, Gumdoll is absolutely paralyzed by a feast of immense luxury. He never dared to dream of such decadent meals. Yet, both father and daughter share a silent heartbreak, desperately wishing Monster Mama could share this joy. Meanwhile, Hira glares with icy annoyance at Gumdoll's foolish bliss. She sharply reminds him, this cursed village is no sanctuary for Chuckbach, especially since the doctor remains utterly baffled. In her darkest thoughts, Hira silently contemplates executing Monster Mama if she caused Chuckbach's grim fate. Suddenly, the relentless chief shatters the tension, forcefully, joining their dinner table. Post-feast, little Chuckbach lies stuffed to the absolute brink, looking entirely bloated. Gumdoll marvels at the impossible luxury of sausages in this wasteland. The chief smiles, boasting of hidden ranches and secret farms nearby. When Gumdoll questions their incredibly scarce electricity, the old man cites a dire lack of generators, restricting power to absolute emergencies. Soon, the chief's piercing gaze shifts to Chuckbach's mutated finger. Gumdoll nervously deflects, stating the doctor requires more time for a cure. After deeply scrutinizing the child's cursed affliction, the chief casually proposes a midnight expedition beyond the walls. Gumdoll hesitates, dreading the lethal darkness. But the chief reveals their grim routine, a weekly, desperate supply run, to feed their rapidly expanding population, demanding massive resources just to keep everyone alive. Still, Gumdoll shudders. Why brave the terrifying night when bloodthirsty monsters prowl the shadows? The chief's smile chills the room. That is exactly why they move at night. Before panic consumes Hira and Gumdoll, the elder elaborates. Monsters hunt most viciously under the moon, abandoning their lairs to roam. While the beasts are distracted, brave villagers raid their empty, shadowed dens for vital supplies. Hira coldly stares, uncertain if this is madness or a joke. Piercing him with suspicion, she demands to know how they plan to survive a monster-infested death trap. Her patience shattered, she demands absolute truth, sick of these twisted games. Gumdoll hastily steps in to calm the tension. The man explains her sensitivity. Yet, the principal ignores her harsh tone and insists his words are no joke. Gumdoll silently agrees, because he also thought the old man was just joking. The principal smirks, certain they will believe him once he reveals. The miracle of Food's Day. Dawn breaks. While Chuck B plays, H turns to Gumdoll, asking if he really believes that crazy old man. Gumdoll admits his doubt. The old coot might just be full of lies. But this could also lead to a cure for Chuckbach. If the old man speaks the truth, it is worth exploring. H makes it clear she is out. Gall is unsurprised, especially since she is not a parent. H admits this much, claiming non-parents cannot truly understand. Still, she wishes him good luck, waiting for good news. The big guy questions her motives, but he makes it perfectly clear. He will do anything for Chuckbach. Night finally falls. Gumdoll begins to regret his foolish choice. Why did I ignore H? This single thought haunts him as he stands there. The creepy old principal stands before him, bursting into sudden laughter. He tells Gall to look around, breathe the fresh night air, enjoy the pleasant breeze, and admire the moonlight casting its glow over everything. But Gall feels none of it. Everyone, including him, trembles in the terrifying presence of the countless monsters lurking nearby. Meanwhile, the instructor, the principal, and that robed woman just stand there, completely unfazed. The entire area crawls with monsters. And what creeps Gall out the most is that the beasts circle the red-cloaked people without attacking. Gall also notices that there are children among those in red robes, freaking him out even more. As the perspective shifts to a wide aerial view, the red-robed people encircle the other villagers, acting as a natural barrier against the monsters. Gumdoll is sure of one thing. The principal knows the truth about these beasts. A little later, the villagers argue among themselves over the gathered supplies. One insists that they were the first to grab an item, while another claims ownership. Meanwhile, Instructor Back quietly asks the principal if he will start right away. The old man smiles, saying that this is the perfect moment. With a smirk, the principal snaps his fingers, declaring it is time for a miracle. Instantly, all the monsters launch themselves at the villagers. However, while the beasts can be seen strangling the villagers, they do not actually try to kill anyone. The entire situation feels bizarre and unnervingly calculated. Everyone panics, though this is not the first time he has seen such despair. The old man still enjoys every second of it. He revels in how pitiful and helpless humans can be. He finds their desperate pleas for mercy both pathetic and strangely adorable. However, the old man is slightly disappointed by the lack of reaction from the guy the instructor chose. But Instructor Bach proudly tells him to watch the front lines closely. When the principal shifts his gaze forward, his eyes widen in pure shock. He watches Gall single-handedly annihilating the monsters. Gall is crushing creatures like numbers on an abacus. The tables have turned. Now, the monsters are trembling and crying, in fear of his overwhelming strength. Gall cannot understand why these monsters suddenly attacked out of nowhere. And what is even stranger, the bastards in red robes are just standing there, doing nothing. This only makes Gumdoll more suspicious. He suspects this was their plan all along. He always knew that walking here at night would be dangerous. But he never expected to face this many monsters at once. Suddenly, a monster lunges at him, trying to bite his hand, but Gall grabs the creature like a trash bag, effortlessly flinging it away. Soon, more monsters lunge at Gall from behind, reacting. Instantly, he twirls with supersonic speed. He delivers a devastating blow to each of their heads, leaving the beasts sprawled on the ground. Seeing this powerhouse in action, the principal does not know how to react. He has not met someone this intriguing in ages. Now that he sees this raw power, he finally understands why Instructor Back respects Gall. Gall is literally pushing away the monsters with nothing but his backpack, a feat far beyond the limits of a mere human. However, as strong as Gumdoll may be, he is still human. Eventually, the overwhelming numbers take their toll, and defeat seems inevitable. Just as the beasts prepare to tear him apart, the old man decides to end this. Absolute madness. But before he can act, pure shock freezes him. The beasts swarming our 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 are obliterated in a single flash. Gall stands with a flashlight and a heavy axe. He is literally tearing these nightmarish creatures to shreds. He pushes them back, but the endless swarm returns. The wounded beasts charge again because their vitals were missed. There is no escape unless he can block their cursed regeneration. He knows a path exists, demanding absolute focus. Suddenly, his mind flashes back to H's warning. She told him never to follow that crazy old man. Now, he feels like an absolute fool. If only he possessed power like Chuckbach's mother. He desperately wishes to be as skilled as H. He needs every ounce of strength to shield his daughter, but grim reality dictates that such a miracle will never happen. The monsters close in, while the eerie red-hooded figures merely watch from the shadows. Facing complete ruin, Gall decides to take that twisted old bastard down. With him, he unleashes every drop of stamina, fighting to outrun and crush the horde. Yet, their overwhelming numbers violently pin him down. Staring into the jaws of certain death, his memory drifts back to the sacred vow he made to Monster Mama. He promised to fiercely protect her and her child, but in return, he asked to be her husband. In that tender moment, Monster Mama accepted his proposal. But now, pinned and utterly helpless, a crushing despair fills him for failing to uphold that protective vow. Surprisingly, though, the old man starts clapping. In an instant, the beasts withdraw. They retreat as fast as they appeared, sparing Gumdoll and the villagers. Though physically unharmed, the sheer terror has carved a dexterminative, permanent scar into their souls. The principal, however, boldly declares this is the true miracle of their Hope Village. He claims this divine blessing kept everyone safe. Looking closer, the villagers realize they are completely unscathed. Not a single scratch taints their skin. The old man continues his grand speech, telling them how to forge a perfect life, free from demonic beasts. Instead of endless dread, he promises their wildest dreams will manifest in Hope Village. He swears to elevate their future to even greater heights. Their only requirement is absolute blind faith. Unsurprisingly, the new recruits burst into tears, willingly surrendering their fate to this old man. They pledge their very souls to the village. Meanwhile, Gall finally sees through the bastard's dark scheme. He realizes this man weaponized pure terror to manipulate the desperate villagers. Gall is now completely certain this cult is dangerously lethal. The scene shifts back to the gloomy underground ward. Chuckbach rests in bed, while the shady doctor hides underneath it. It seems this lunatic doctor cannot catch a single wink of sleep, especially with the fierce ladies resting on top of him. As he endlessly mutters complaints, H shoots him an absolute death glare. That alone humbles the creepy bastard instantly. With his annoying whining silenced, both women are relieved to finally enjoy some well-deserved, peaceful sleep. The scene cuts to Mama Monster's isolated apartment. The dark of night has fallen, and Mama Monster is dead certain the cannibal tribe is hunting her down. She suspects they are tracking the parasitic tentacle, planted deep within her flesh. She recalls that sinister, yellow-eyed bastard violently demanding the return of his stolen body. Not only is her memory of that fateful day completely blank, but her entire past. Life is a mystery. Lost in thought, a grotesque beast violently crashes into her room, but Mama leaps out of the bitten way, instantly retaliating with a lethal slash. Glaring at this hairy abomination, Mama is absolutely certain they have crossed paths before inside that dungeon, yet she has zero clue how it tracked her down, or why her refined senses failed to detect its foul presence. Her confusion deepens when the beast actually speaks. Its very first chilling words reveal it already knew Mama's exact location. The beast is also highly offended being remembered merely as a hairy monster. The creature snarls, claiming it always craved a one-on-one deathmatch. But Mama isn't having any of it. A flash, she seizes the beast's throat and slams it down. The terrifying reality that this monster just read her mind is driving Mama insane. The dread only multiplies when the fiend smugly confesses to invading her private thoughts. Mama fiercely demands if it belongs to the cannibal tribe, or if backup is waiting. But this hairy monster stays silent. Instead, she launches a fierce counterattack. Mama has absolutely no choice but to protect herself. Mama dismounts the beast as the hairy creature attempts to escape. But Mama swiftly strikes back, unleashing her lethal needles. Unfortunately, the deadly poison proves useless once again. The hairy abomination smirks, arrogantly claiming to know absolutely everything about Mama. While Mama stands utterly baffled by this mysterious creature's true identity, the monstrous beast casually shifts the conversation. It brings up Mama's charming husband and adorable daughter, even mentioning the shocking fact that her family traveled to the village with the Axum. As if that were not terrifying enough, the hairy beast also knows that the cannibal tribe is hunting Mama. She has absolutely no idea what this twisted monster is plotting. If the creature does not belong to the cannibal tribe, then who exactly is she? Suddenly, the hairy woman begins a horrifying transformation. The dense fur around her body coils tightly like armor. After this rapid evolution, she violently launches herself straight at Mama. Mama stands completely paralyzed, realizing this monstrous entity looks exactly like her. But before these two Eren Yeager lookalikes clash in an epic duel, we dive deep into Mama's forgotten memories. She recalls the lingering sensation of being watched. Yet, whenever she scanned her surroundings, she found absolutely nothing. At first, she dismissed it as pure paranoia, simply thinking it was a trick of her exhausted mind, but she was dead wrong. An icy, piercing stare had constantly shadowed her every move. Now, she finally uncovers the dark truth behind that relentless gaze. Back in the present, the vicious monster violently hurls Mama completely out of the apartment. But Mama swiftly counters with a brutal kick, sending the wretched creature crashing down. Mama gracefully lands on her feet, entirely unscathed. She firmly believes that such a devastating fall from that immense height must have killed it. But her hopes shatter as this hybrid version of venom rises from the rubble without a single scratch. It seems Mama has completely exhausted her arsenal. She utilized her paralyzing poison and even attempted to sever the twisted beast's arm in combat, but nothing phases this terrifying anomaly. Still, Mama refuses to surrender. Her warrior spirit insists there must be a hidden way to obliterate this hairy nightmare. However, the monster, effortlessly reading Mama's very thoughts, arrogantly reminds her with a cruel smirk that her struggle is utterly pointless. According to the creature, victory is an absolute impossibility. Even worse, the eerie monster claims she can directly feel every single emotion Mama experiences. As icy fear slowly creeps into Mama's anxious mind, the creepy aberration savors that exact same terror. Pushed to her absolute limits, Mama violently sprints away. She must definitely escape, because her survival instincts scream that this entity is pure danger. But it seems Mama never even stood a chance. Right before she can gain any distance, the wretched beast ruthlessly impales her from behind. The monster whispers that she can no longer deny her existence, forcing her to finally face the agonizing truth. The beast brutally and relentlessly stabs poor Mama, continuing the savage onslaught. Blood viciously splatters as the creature's strikes tear right through her fragile flesh. Eventually, massive blood loss and shredded limbs drain Mama's remaining life force. This twisted doppelganger is utterly furious that the real Mama refuses to acknowledge her. All she craves is absolute acceptance. Meanwhile, Mama helplessly feels her soul slowly slipping away. Pleasant memories flash across her fading consciousness. Her mind drifts back to the fateful day she gave birth to her precious baby, and in that tragic flashback, her newborn was completely covered in dark hair, exactly like this monster. Suddenly, Mama violently snaps awake. Her body is drenched in cold sweat. But before she can catch her breath or process her chaotic thoughts, she spots the vicious cannibal tribe looming directly over her. After forcefully dragging Mama outside, Dion violently punches her squarely across the face. However, the foolish Dion only ends up slashing her own hand against the razor-sharp fangs hidden deep in Mama's mouth. This entirely enrages Dion, who mercilessly begins kicking her instead. One of the grotesque cannibal members boldly claims Mama is exactly his type. The fact that she has a child somehow makes her even more appealing to his twisted mind. But Mama refuses to tolerate such a filthy degenerate. Channeling her blazing fury, she delivers a devastating, nut-crushing kick straight between his legs. The disgusting thug completely loses his mind from the agonizing pain. When Dion attempts to retaliate, she receives a thunderous kick of her own, sending her violently crashing into the wall. Mama instantly seizes the fife, opening and sprints away at lightning speed. Furious over their humiliating defeat, an enraged Dion turns to Ren and urgently orders to her to chase Mama down. But this massive BBA remains utterly confident. No matter where their prey runs, escape is absolutely impossible. They can flawlessly track her using the parasitic tentacle embedded deep in Mama's chest. So, despite Mama's valiant efforts to flee, Dion swiftly catches up and unleashes a devastating strike right into her back. However, Dion quickly realizes the terrifying truth. Her target was merely a decoy zombie. In a brilliant counterattack, Mama ruthlessly slashes Dion right across her back. The degenerate thug who got kicked earlier lunges at Mama again, but he is instantly rewarded with a massive, bloody slash across his stomach. Suddenly, the towering juggernaut enters the fray. He lands a bone-shattering punch that sends Mama tumbling backward. She regains her balance and stands firm. Dion and her comrade look terribly battered, but Ren steps in to help. As they recover, Mama watches in absolute shock. The fatal wounds she dealt are closing instantly. She has never seen such a rapid regeneration. To provoke her, Dion sneers and brings up Mama's family, claiming she knows they are hiding in Hope Village. That wicked smirk on Dion's face screams pure malice, making her dark intentions for Mama's family crystal clear. The mere threat to her loved ones shatters Mama's restraint. Consumed by a blazing, uncontrollable fury, she completely loses her mind and lunges at Dion. But this reckless charge leaves her totally exposed. The twisted bastard seizes the perfect opening, piercing Mama's stomach with one devastating punch. Despite the gruesome, bloody impact, Mama forces herself back up, refusing to fall, and lashes out with her tentacles. But the bastard counters, using his own mutated limbs to crush and bind her. Now fully restrained and helpless, Dion flashes a sickening grin. Suddenly, a terrifying horde of monsters swarms the entire area. Dion revels in her victory, believing her ultimate revenge is finally happening. She eagerly waits to tear her prey apart. Just as her cruel words fall, the vile creatures lunge, brutally ripping at Mama's hands. The agonizing pain is unimaginable, yet the fiercely devoted mother endures it all. That piece of trash Dion watches with absolute glee, already planning to claim Mama as a pet once her father finishes his cruel work. But fate is about to shatter their arrogant plans. The fools suddenly sense a daunting presence approaching. Before a single breath can be drawn, Dion is violently smashed away. The devastating strike sends her crashing into the earth. Just one blow reduces her to a bloody, broken mess. Her allies stand frozen in absolute shock. A total stranger just obliterated Dion with a single strike. Even the mindless zombies nearby begin trembling in sheer terror. The heavy aura reveals the true identity of this legendary arrival. The Dungeon Master is here with her child. This fierce mother has come to rescue another and find her daughter, while her feral son is itching for blood. Dion's squad breaks into a cold sweat facing this overwhelming monster. Even Monster Mama is completely baffled by the Dungeon Master's sudden appearance. Bound and battered by these thugs, she lacks the strength to fight another deadly enemy. Mama has not yet realized that the terrifying Dungeon Master is actually her ally, viewing her as just another lethal threat. Panicking, the twisted thug asks Ren what their next move should be. Every other monster shares the same clueless, fearful expression, but Ren bites down her terror, desperately ordering everyone to hold their ground and not panic. They cannot afford to fight the Dungeon Master. Their only target is Mama, who holds a piece of their father. Ren orders them to capture her for their father's sake. At her command, the vicious monsters swarm Mama. Meanwhile, Wild Child tells his mother he is ready to play. The Dungeon Master nods, unleashing her colossal hands to obliterate. The advancing beast wave. Those massive hands brutally crush every single zombie in sight, carefully leaving Mama completely untouched by the carnage. Cold sweat drips down Ren's face as the horrifying truth hits her. The Dungeon Master is only slaughtering her. Cannibal family. Mama watches the absolute chaos and confusion, but the pieces connect when the Dungeon Master shoots her a reassuring smile. Forced into a corner, the cannibal tribe braces for a desperate fight. Ren screams out her final orders, demanding they attack. But the ordinary fodder monsters completely break rank, fleeing in absolute terror from those devastating mountain-like hands. Despite the fleeing cowards, the elite core of the cannibal tribe charges headfirst into the bloodbath with everything they have. But instantly, the twisted thug's head is cleanly severed by Mama's blindingly fast slash. Witnessing his comrade fall, the Juggernaut completely loses his mind in a roaring frenzy. Going all out, he violently smashes his giant fist into the earth, shattering the very ground. But Mama vanishes like a phantom before the shockwave can even graze her. The enraged Juggernaut frantically scans the battlefield. He holds back from striking blindly, terrified of catching his own family in the devastating crossfire. But this giant fool has no idea that death is already standing right behind him. He fails to sense her. Until it is far too late, Mama's lethal poison surges through him, melting his flesh instantly. Before the giant can react, Mama prepares to drive her needle straight through his skull. Sometime later, Dion regains consciousness. Blinking through her daze, she finds both monstrous Mamas towering over her. Pure, suffocating terror grips her soul as she realizes her entire family has been reduced to bloody minced meat, elite members included. She trembles in absolute horror as Monster Mama looms menacingly, staring her down with deadly intent. Demanding the absolute truth, Mama watches as the panicked Dion desperately spills every secret, She spills every dark secret. She reveals Hope Village is their second hideout, confirming she saw Mama's family there. The scene shifts to Hope Village. All the newly arrived villagers have returned after surviving their grueling trial. Because of this test, everyone now places immense faith in the principal. Meanwhile, Gumdoll remains deeply unsettled by a chilling revelation. The beasts controlled by the principal actually possess the ability to speak. However, even if he shared this dark secret with Hera, they remained powerless. Suddenly, a mysterious woman catches his eye. She promises to meet him later at the hospital. True to her word, she arrives at the clinic shortly after, where Hera sits waiting to confront the stranger. Taking a seat, she introduces herself as Yang Julie, mother of Yi-He. She claims to know everything about Gul through her daughter. His eyes immediately dart to her missing right arm, watching as she extends her left hand in greeting, but Hera refuses the gesture. She simply clicks her tongue, freezing the room in an awkward, heavy tension. Undeterred, Yang Julie initiates the conversation, asking Gul for his thoughts on the miracle of Food Day. She asks if the so-called miracle pleased him. Gumdoll stares in total confusion at the absurd question, but he clearly refuses to blindly trust in miracles. Surprisingly, the woman smiles, relieved he rejects that pathetic illusion. She admits her fear that he might have been brainwashed by the deranged old man calling himself the principal. Finding an ally brings her obvious relief. Gul cuts straight to the point, demanding she expose everything she knows about the principal's true motives. Her expression darkens. She reveals how he uses a warm smile to lure innocent people, either feeding them to the beasts or mutating them into actual monsters. He is nothing but a twisted, bloodthirsty tyrant who birthed the cannibal tribe. That cursed name strikes Gul like lightning, and even Hera scowls too. Hear it. Gul demands absolute confirmation. He asks if this village is truly a front for the cannibal tribe. Yangju nods with chilling calmness. She explains that beneath its peaceful disguise, this village operates as a horrific monster factory. Hera's eyes narrow with deep suspicion. It makes absolutely no sense for Yangju to casually leak such dangerous secrets to complete strangers. She forcefully demands the entire truth, and Yangju seems completely prepared to spill every dark secret. Suddenly, Hera declares they are leaving tomorrow. This abrupt decision catches the big guy completely off guard. They haven't even begun Chuckbach's medical treatment, but Hera shoots Gumdoll a lethal glare, reminding him they cannot remain trapped here. They are already standing in enemy territory before the treatment even begins. She coldly plots their escape, planning to kidnap the doctor as a valuable hostage. Furthermore, she intends to raid their medical supplies and pillage resources from the cursed village. To make matters worse, Hera exudes a terrifying bloodlust, ready to execute Yangju. The woman gulps, paralyzed by Hera's murderous aura. Gumdoll frantically tries to suppress Hera's blazing wrath. Meanwhile, the terrified doctor, who had previously faced Hera's killing intent, warns everyone to tread carefully, even when this brutal woman is asleep. He sternly reminds the group that despite having access to unimaginable medical equipment in this facility, he still struggles to cure Chuckbach. Evacuating the little girl now could fatally ruin her chances of recovery. Yangju immediately agrees with his assessment. If Hera acts recklessly, Chuckbach will miss the crucial treatment window, and her sickness will rapidly deteriorate. Eventually, Chuckbach might mutate into a horrific little monster. While becoming a beast might sound trivial, to outsiders, Hera absolutely refuses to let that happen. Exploding with ferocious anger, she violently grabs Yi by the throat. Both men desperately try to restrain Hera, but her mind is locked onto one question. How did Yangju discover Chuckbach's illness? Only the doctor held that secret. The doctor stammers in panic, swearing Yangju can be trusted. But Hera isn't listening. Boiling with murderous rage, she is absolutely determined to eliminate any threat that could endanger their brown future. She ruthlessly tightens her iron grip on Yangju's throat, demanding to know how the principal learned about Chuckbach. Choking for air, Yangju gasps that the principal is a devastatingly dangerous man. He wants Chuckbach. Even if they flee this village, his beasts will endlessly hunt them down. Despite the warning, Hera's grip only tightens. In pure desperation, Yangju screams at the top of her lungs. She promises Hera absolutely anything: vital treatment, endless supplies, whatever it takes, in exchange for one bloody favor. She needs Hera to assassinate the old man and save her daughter. The two men fall dead silent, paralyzed by the desperate mother's plea. Even Hera freezes in her tracks. Slowly, the The burning wrath fades from her eyes, and she finally releases her crushing grip from the lady's throat. Hera accepts the dark contract, but demands absolute loyalty in return. Extending a firm hand of reluctant goodwill, she pulls the trembling woman to her feet. Meanwhile, Chuckbach has been wide awake in the shadows, silently absorbing every dark word spoken by the adults. Later, the scene shifts to Yangju speaking with the doctor. Her neck throbs with pain, yet she continues to fiercely complain about the brutal encounter. But the doctor scoffs, bluntly stating she was incredibly lucky to escape with just a sore neck. He then questions if her actions, faith in their choices. He reminds her the cannibal tribe is a deadly threat, asking if she will regret this path. Furthermore, the doctor remains clueless on how to cure Chuckbach without knowing the root cause. Yet, Yuju stands completely unfazed, highly confident. The doctor will find a way. She harbors absolutely zero regrets. Her resolve is unwavering, making this choice for her daughter's future. She knows her own father would have done the same. This is her sole chance at redemption. To uncover this woman's tragic past, we flash back 3 years. Along desolate roads, her family marched together. They risked death to scavenge food and evade monsters. They journeyed toward the sanctuary her husband spoke of, Hope Village. As they trudged forward, Yi, the young girl, suffered from starvation. Her father urged her to hold on, promising they were close. He pointed at her mother, who fought to stay strong against the brutal elements. Though Youngju wished to sacrifice herself to spare rations for her daughter, they finally reached Hope Village. It was all due to her husband Min Sugo. His relentless optimism fueled her will to survive. When the heavy iron gates of Hope Village opened, the principal stood waiting with a bright smile. He warmly welcomed them inside. Every single person, including the principal, beamed with joy at the newcomers. It felt like a blissful dream to Youngju. Escaping the living hell outside, this village overflowed with warmth. It mirrored the pre-apocalypse world. Mama banished her doubts, feeling immense relief. She was glad they survived. For the first time in an eternity, she embraced true hope. That day, tears fell uncontrollably. Believing her family had reclaimed a peaceful daily life inside Hope Village felt like an illusion. It seemed too good to be true. The frail Yi grew up healthy, strong enough to play outside. Her husband became the voice of the village, driving its prosperity. Guided by her family and neighbors, her wounds healed. She took charge of nurturing new arrivals. When the doctor stepped into this village for the very first time, he was utterly fascinated yet slightly suspicious. Seeing her husband affectionately cuddling with her, he felt an inexplicable irritation, unable to understand why. The pivotal moment that changed Yangju's mind was the divine miracle the principal revealed. At first, his bizarre tests seemed like the only path to her family's safety. She fully believed this village was their ultimate sanctuary. The thriving community provided absolute security. For a fleeting time, it was a haven from the outside horrors, but everything shattered when her husband returned one day. Pale and trembling with dread, he urgently warned her the village was a deadly trap. He claimed he saw the monsters and uncovered the slaughtered bodies of missing villagers, secretly hidden deep within the basement. He begged her to pack everything and flee immediately, warning her they would become monsters or end up dead next. However, Yuju stood completely steadfast in her refusal to run away. She argued that escaping meant facing a worse hell outside. Brutal death and constant danger awaited them there. She refused to gamble her daughter's life in that harsh wasteland. If hell was inevitable, they would face it here. She vowed to fiercely protect her family within these walls at any cost. Demanding he stay hidden, she swore to handle the threat herself. She felt confident. Her husband was just overthinking. Thus, she boldly confronted the principal to reveal every single detail her husband shared. The principal listened with eerie calm. To her relief, he reassured her that everything would be perfectly fine. He praised her honesty, declaring trust as the village's true foundation. For a brief moment, she felt safe, trusting his comforting words. However, that fleeting relief quickly morphed into unimaginable terror. She found her husband brutally mutilated and her own hand severed. This nightmare unfolded in front of her own eyes. She could not comprehend how their fate spiraled out of control. Was it all because her husband fearlessly entered the basement? Or was it because she blindly ignored the warning signs and placed her trust in a monster? Then the principal began to speak. recounting the sinister habits of cuckoo birds. She explains how cuckoos lay their eggs inside foreign nests. They leave the unsuspecting mother bird to raise the cuckoo's young. Upon hatching, the cuckoo brutally shoves the mother's real eggs from the nest. This ensures all attention belongs to the cuckoo chick alone. The tragic mother bird raises it with pure love. As the cuckoo matures, it leeches off its adoptive parent, only to abandon the nest and leave pure devastation in its wake. This exact betrayal fueled the principal's hatred for such birds. He reminded her that he raised her with absolute faith, treating her as true family. But the moment anyone dared to act like a parasite, his fury knew no bounds. He spiraled into utter madness, refusing to accept the harsh reality that traitorous rats no longer belonged in his sanctuary. That fateful day brought absolute and total ruin upon the grieving mother. Tears streamed down her face as she desperately begged for forgiveness, swearing it would never happen again. She took all the blame for failing to sway her husband, offering to do absolutely anything the principal desired, even as a lowly slave. She desperately begged him to spare her husband. That was the moment. Instructor Beck stepped forward, viciously kicking her across the face. His rage boiled over. How dare she demand trust? After such a vile betrayal, he refused to let ungrateful rats breathe within their sanctuary. But the old man ordered Beck to stand down. Since she showed a sliver of honesty by confessing her husband's secrets, he offered her one final chance for redemption. Tossing a cold blade at her feet, he ruthlessly commanded her to kill the traitor. Only then would she be welcomed back into the family. But naturally, the weeping woman could not kill her beloved husband, refusing the order. The principal swiftly threatened her daughter instead, leaving Youngju with no other choice. Steeling her resolve, she prepared to end his life. As she gripped the heavy dagger, her husband met her gaze for the final time. He urged her to strike, whispering a secret truth meant only for her ears, and, just like that, she took her husband's life. Later, that wicked old man embraced her, officially declaring her a true member of his village. By dawn, the entire community had gathered, mourning the tragic and sudden loss of their beloved family member. The old man spun a web of deceit, claiming the fallen hero fought bravely against the terrifying monsters. He declared the man gave his life while his wife lost her arm, ensuring the village's ultimate safety. Shedding crocodile tears, the principal expressed deep sorrow and overwhelming remorse that one of their very own had to suffer such a grim end. Just as planned, the manipulated villagers poured out their brother unwavering support, absolving him of blame. That monstrous old man was a master manipulator, easily swaying their minds to harvest sympathy. Even Beck, the bastard who treated her husband like dirt, dared to offer his fake condolences with flowers. Yet the most sickening person in that crowd was herself. She had staged this entire tragic illusion. The haunting memory of murdering her husband twisted her stomach in vile knots. Her greed was the true blade that ended his life. The crushing guilt denied her even the sweet release of death. Her daughter Yonggi now relied on the principal after her father's demise. She would truly rather die than forgive her unforgivable sins. But she had a grim mission ahead. If she stayed idle, those monsters would exploit her daughter too, condemning her to a fate worse than Minsu's. At that exact moment, her resolve turned to steel. It didn't matter how long it took. She swore to slaughter them all, protecting Youngi and avenging Minsu. At any cost, she would see it done. The dark memory fades, shifting reality to a sterile hospital. It is the 28th experiment. He has run, and he finally uncovers the truth. Chuckbach is vastly different from the other beasts. In the second trial, he injected a rat with her mutated finger's blood. It mutated in exactly 35 seconds. But on the contrary, injecting blood from any other part of her body yielded zero results. Absolutely nothing happened. He also ran more tests using different methods, but he utterly failed to pinpoint the true cause of her mutation. However, one vital clue emerged. He discovered a strange membrane sealing off the mutated tissue, perfectly designed to block the virus from spreading. He desperately needed more time to study this anomaly. Chuckbach seemed to possess a rare gene suppressing the virus, granting her true immunity. Suddenly, she sneezed loudly, startling the doctor out of his focus. The sweet girl sat there with snot dangling from her tiny nose, and this time, she shattered her own record for the absolute longest snot. Grossed out, the doctor quickly handed her a tissue to wipe her face. The girl then looked up, nervously asking if she would turn into a horrifying monster. She overheard his talk last night. With no idea how to console the girl, the doctor just tried his best. He gently told her not to worry. Though it won't be easy, a cure must exist. He swore she didn't need to stress over the awful things they said last night. The doctor silently prayed his words were enough to soothe her, as he'd be quite annoyed if she began crying, but surprisingly, the girl remained unfazed. In fact, she felt thrilled that she would grow strong like her mother upon turning into a monster. She wanted to become a massive beast to protect her mother and father. The thought of gaining power, defending her family, and receiving endless praise made her feel proud. While she idolized herself as a legendary superhero in her own mind, the doctor's dark vision painted a grim reality. He saw only a mindless Chuckbach, unconsciously offering food to her parents with her tiny, monstrous hands. Suddenly, the ward door creaked open, and Yangju stepped inside. She announced they were ready. Chuckbach curiously asked about her parents and their destination. Yangju simply patted her head and promised they would return shortly. She then asked if Chuckbach wanted to play a game, a hostage game to be exact. The scene shifted outside, revealing Yangju beside an ally. Her friend carefully asked if she knew where the brown principal was. Yangju pointed toward the basement, claiming he was likely lurking in the newcomers' area down below. Inside the basement, the principal and Beck walked ahead, followed by our duo. The old man flattered them, glad they chose to stay in the village. Gumdoll returned the fake praise with a grateful tone. Gumdoll then questioned the area, admitting he never knew such an underground space existed. The cunning old man explained that this served as an emergency shelter for dangerous events. The old man then asked the big guy if Yangju had visited the hospital to meet him on the first day. The big guy agreed without hesitation. The old man followed up with a piercing question, asking what she had shared. He claimed she praised the village extensively, highlighting its safety and how deeply she respected everyone. He noted she gave the principal full credit for keeping their sanctuary running flawlessly. As Gumdoll finished his story, the old man let out a sinister giggle, erupting into laughter. When Hera asked the creepy man why he was laughing, Beck coldly replied that Gumdoll's fabricated story was entertaining. But now that Gumdoll and Hera were part of the family, Beck firmly believed they should not lie, since they were clearly lying. Through their teeth, Beck saw no reason to spare their lives. The old man still wanted to keep our duo alive, as they proved to be incredibly valuable assets to the village. Yet, as much as it pained him, he finally realized that they posed a massive threat since they truly did not belong here. Hera tensely asked if they could leave. The old man quickly countered that departure was unnecessary. He revealed another dark path to joining their twisted family. If they swore absolute loyalty and became true family, he promised a reunion with their daughter. The scene cut outside, where the villagers were losing their minds in pure panic. Yangju stood tall, fiercely commanding the other red-robed men, forcefully restraining the crowd. Her demands were clear. If they valued their lives, they must follow her and flee the village immediately. Watching her mother lead a full-scale rebellion left her daughter utterly stunned. The dark truth emerged. This wicked old man knew about the impending rebellion from the very start. He foresaw this chaos. Fully aware of every effort Yangju poured into her uprising, he watched from the shadows as she persuaded our duo at the hospital and anticipated her move to threaten his family right now. Yet, he never intervened in her plans. To him, this rebellion was a perfect golden opportunity. He could finally expose the traitors who betrayed his trust and eradicate them. The useful ones would join his new family, while the weak would be fed to the lurking monsters. He eagerly awaited the absolute devastation on Yangju's face upon realizing that all her exhausting efforts meant nothing. Meanwhile, our unfortunate duo faced a horrifying, grotesque monster possessing multiple thrashing tongues. The foul creature forced them to evade frantically. Although Gumdoll gripped a weapon, the colossal beast towering before them was simply overwhelming. A basic weapon would never suffice. Retreat was best for the moment. He frantically yelled for Hera to fall back, but the fierce woman stubbornly charged forward, cleanly cutting her path through the slimy, writhing tongues, desperately trying to snare her. Once she sliced through the flesh, she prepared to sever the monster's head. The beast suddenly sensed Hera attacking from its blind spot, but its reaction came too late. The scarf was a brilliant tactical decoy. Hera swiftly threw her jacket over its face, and while it thrashed, disoriented for a second, she swung her blade to end it. Although Hera managed to slash the monster's head, Her deadly swing missed its exact mark. The horrific monster violently tore free from its decaying skin. But this reveal proved utterly meaningless. An axe instantly buried itself deep into the beast's skull. Hera did not even sweat, throwing it. Meanwhile, Youngju's fierce rebellion raged on. To threaten the panicking villagers even further, she strikes the poor doctor. Blood splatters instantly. Chuckbach watches. She feels no terror at all. Apparently, she was told to play the victim. The moment he fell, she faked absolute horror. Just then, a furious villager steps forward. He glares at Yangju with pure disgust. How dare she rebel against the principal who gave them paradise? Meanwhile, Yangju stood unbroken. She prepared for this exact moment, meeting their rage with an icy stare. That chilling gaze breaks their fighting spirit. The angry mob quickly loses all morale. Defeated, they drop their weapons to the ground. She breathes a quiet sigh of relief. Now, they can minimize casualties. The villagers can move somewhere safe. The weapons will serve a better purpose. It seems, sending those two after the principal was a brilliant move. Otherwise, that wicked old man might have already vanished without a trace. A violent riot could have erupted. However, a dark suspicion still lingers. There's a chance that sly devil foresaw this rebellion. Yangju refuses to drop her guard. Suddenly, a shocking sight unfolds. Yonggi steps out from the shadows. She cradles the little one, a cold firearm gripped in her hand. She fires straight into the sky to silence the crowd. She points the lethal barrel straight at her mother and firmly commands her to release the villagers. Her mother freezes in shock. The villagers stare in absolute disbelief. Seeing Yonggi brandishing a weapon changes everything. The principal has poisoned her mind. He had whispered dark lies in advance. He warned her about this motherly rebellion. He armed her for this exact twisted scenario. As Yonggi firmly aims the steel, her mother steps forward. Her loyal companions scream in panic. They beg her to halt, as it is too dangerous. But Yangju ignores them, taking slow steps. She calmly tells her to breathe. Yonggi, however, demands immediate answers. She interrogates her own mother. Why would she dare to take the innocent villagers as hostages? How could she brutally harm the good doctor? Her mother steps closer to disarm her, but the young girl's mind is utterly corrupted. The principal's twisted manipulation runs deep. She coldly declares that her mother should have perished instead of her father. Panic strikes her. In blinding confusion, she aims the deadly weapon at Chuckbach's head. She blindly fires at the red-robed men. Without looking back, she violently sprints toward the basement gate. She believes the principal is her only family now. She must obey his absolute will and find him. The scene then abruptly shifts to our mama. We see Daeon dripping in cold sweat. Held captive, she is forced to reveal the hidden path into the village. Trembling violently, Daeon realizes her entire squad has been wiped out. However, as she glances back at Mama, she notices her heavy exhaustion. A dark thought crosses Daeon's mind. This could be her chance to make a desperate escape. But Mama reads her face like an open book. She questions her shifting gaze. Daeon freezes, feeling a abdominal tie, deep chill down her spine. She stammers out an excuse. She claims Mama looks completely drained, and that they only have a little further to go. Suddenly, a massive thud shakes the ground. Out of the shadows emerges Ren. Accompanied by her monstrous beast, Ren glares furiously at Mama. Her eyes burn with a thirst for revenge. Daeon is utterly shocked. She feels a wave of relief seeing her sister alive. She truly thought Ren had crossed the Yellow Springs. But Ren skips the heartfelt reunion. She coldly barks at Daeon to step back. Get out of the way or get caught in the incoming slaughter. Ren unleashes her wild beast, Bo-sun. The massive monster lunges at Mama with terrifying speed. Daeon scrambles away like a rat. Mama braces herself for a deadly clash. But before the explosive showdown can begin, the viewpoint violently shifts. We return to fleeing Yonggi. She sprints desperately, hugging Chuckbach, while being hunted by her mother and the red-robed guards. Her mother screams out a frantic warning. Do not step further into the dark abyss. But her defiant daughter spins around. The cold barrel targets her mother again. The girl fiercely refuses to recognize this woman as her flesh and blood. She demands her mother vanish forever. After all, she has already found her family in the principal and villagers. Little Chuckbach suddenly speaks up. Annoyed, she firmly scolds Yonggi to stop treating her mother like trash. Chuckbach feels deep pity for the broken woman. It breaks her heart to see such hatred from a daughter. The words finally pierce Yonggi's corrupted mind. Her iron grip falters, and her hands begin to violently shake. Her shattered mother softly apologizes. Genuine tears well up. She is deeply sad she was not present when her daughter needed her most. She falsely believed distance was an act of love. But looking at her now, she realizes she was a complete failure as a mother. She softly reassures her trembling daughter, swearing she does not need to mourn the doctor. It was merely a theatrical trick using fake blood. She would never harm her own family. All this mother desires is her daughter's complete trust. She even claims she remains completely unfazed by her child's previous cruel remarks about her death. For one final time, she begs her to trust this garbage of a bifes mother. Emotionally shattered, the young girl can only weep. Eventually, she tearfully apologizes to her mother for being so cruel. Suddenly, a beast drops from above. Before anyone can react, it snatches both Yeon-hee and poor Chuckbach. The mother charges forward to save her endangered child. However, the dark creature swiftly leaps into the sky after securing its prey. Consumed by fury, Yang-ju instantly orders her squad to summon backup. She is utterly enraged that the vile elder orchestrated this entire scheme to abduct her child. Meanwhile, as the flying beast carries the two captive girls away, Chach spots survivors battling the monsters. What catches her eye is that Hira and Gall are fighting back against the horde. When she screams at the duo, they turn. Hun's expression instantly shatters as she spots the beast clutching Chuckbach. Hun's wrath erupts. With one devastating slash, she obliterates the monster before her. However, before she can save the child, the beast manages to flee. After a rapid flight, the monster finally halts and drops both captives. As Yeon-hee gasps for air, the sinister principal speaks to her. He smoothly praises her for escaping the traitors and bringing the child to him. He admits the dark task must have been difficult, but assures her she performed flawlessly. The twisted elder then vows that from this moment on, his family will protect her. With that, he shifts his predatory gaze to Chuckbach. But just as the repulsive man reaches out to grab the child, he abruptly stops. He notices Yong-yi refusing to release the child. Curious and visibly irritated, he asks why. For a tense moment, Yong-yi remains silent. Finally, she confesses she always found it deeply suspicious when people who cherished the village vanished without a goodbye, or were exiled for wicked behavior. That was exactly what the village in Reblo by Live principal always preached. But now, she sees the dark truth. She reveals how during their flight with the monster, she spotted terribly familiar faces among the monster horde below. Faces of the very people who had left the village. The grim reality is clear. Those missing villagers were mutated into beasts. Yeon-hee recalls how everyone who had been a valuable asset to their home was warped into mindless monsters. As this crushing realization hits her, Beck slams his heavy foot down to intimidate her. Disgusted by her audacity to question the principal's judgment, he openly wonders if she forgot the kindness he showed raising her. Yeon-hee does not want to seem ungrateful for everything received, but she cannot understand turning families into monsters. In that exact brutal moment, Beck kicks her stomach. The raw force instantly knocks her out cold. The giant man glares down at her body, reminding her that this was merely a warning. If she ever spouts such nonsense again, she will die. Suddenly, the vile old man steps in, ordering Beck to calm down. He then faces Yong-yi, speaking in a chilling voice that holds zero sympathy. He mocks that this truth may be too complex for her fragile mind, but in this brutal world, not everyone gets to be happy. The world is split between strong and weak. Under the absolute law of the jungle, for survival, anything goes. While the weak merely await death, the strong ruthlessly take everything from them. The only way the weak survive is protection from the strong, just like him and his vile monsters. The old man is confident that, with age, Yeon-hee will accept this dark logic. Suddenly, Chuckbach speaks up. Without a single shred of fear, she boldly calls him a wicked old man. She quickly rips the tiny bandage off her infected finger. Thrusting it high into the air to make her bold point, she fiercely declares that those who make others cry are just evil. If they don't stop being mean, she will complain to her parents about every single person. Here, her dramatic little speech steals the spotlight. They all burst out laughing, entirely amused by the sight of such a tiny girl talking so big. Not only is she deeply annoyed by their laughter, but Chuckbach is also entirely furious. They ignore her, So, she gathers enough air in her lungs to make her tiny belly massively bulge. She instantly lets out a deafening roar, desperately crying for her parents. The elder sneers at her cute, pathetic final effort. They all find her charming and fiercely admirable, clinging to fragile hope even in the darkest abyss of pure despair. She looks so pure that the vile elder wants to deeply relish smashing her to bloody pieces with his bare hands. As the monstrous old man approaches, Chuckbach finally panics. She instinctively begins to sob, desperately calling out to her, "Mommy," at maximum volume. This time, her desperate cry for help finally bears fruit. The evil old bastard rapidly finds his vile mouth violently smashed by a projectile. The object that hit him is none other than Ren's head. Instructor Beak instinctively grabbed his gun. Before he could aim, a flying axe split the air. The blade shattered his weapon. Absolute chaos erupted. Surrounding monsters went completely feral, wondering who dared hurl a blade at the principal. Their question vanished as Mama materialized. She proudly stood across the area. Beside her, Hira radiated pure wrath. Together, these two women were an absolute nightmare. One blazing truth fueled their fury. These vile creatures dared to harm Chuckbach. Their daughter, both mothers unleashed a deafening roar, a vicious promise of total slaughter. Meanwhile, Dayon cowered in a corner, violently trembling. Completely shell-shocked, she could not fathom how Mama utterly obliterated Ren's monstrous pet. Even worse, Ren herself had actually perished. Back in the chaotic fray, the beasts noticed Mama's glowing yellow eyes. Fear dawned instantly as they realized who stood before them. This was the female monster their father fiercely hunted. Deep confusion hit them. How did she breach the entrance? Guards were stationed there. Her terrifying presence meant only one thing: total slaughter. Meanwhile, Chuckbach waved excitedly at Mama. Relief washed over her seeing her child unharmed, yet she remained deeply anxious about Gumdoll. Simultaneously, Hira intensely analyzed Mama's monstrous transformation. She now wielded 3 deadly tendrils, an unknown power mutated from her massive tentacles. This deeply horrific sight solidified Hira's conviction. This creature was a massive danger to Chuckbach. Curiously, the principal felt chilling dread. He finally recognized the yellow-eyed woman. She was the exact beast his father and the founder ruthlessly sought. A nearby monster nervously asked if the principal was okay. Obviously, he was. Mentally broken, having Ren's severed head hurled at him crushed his pride. Trembling with rage, the principal stood tall. He furiously barked orders. Capture the yellow-eyed woman at any cost. Immediately, he ordered the rest to slaughter Hira. Meanwhile, Yi stood entirely paralyzed. Shaking, she frantically begged Chuckbach to flee, but the fearless girl firmly refused. Filled with unwavering faith, she fully knew her mother's possessed absolute supreme strength. Her conviction was totally unbreakable. Suddenly, Instructor Bach and a monstrous horde advanced on Hira. A second wave charged Mama. Paralyzed by horror, he desperately wished to escape this nightmare. Chuckbach simply watched calmly. Her faith in her mother's was entirely unshakable. The girl's fierce confidence was justified. The beasts remained entirely oblivious to their doom. As Mama's massive tentacles swung, lethal needles pierced their flesh. Deafening screams of agony continuously erupted. As the toxic venom took hold, Mama moved like a phantom. Her brutal tentacles thrashed and stabbed with lethal precision. The beasts had zero chance, dissolving into blood. The principal stood entirely frozen, unable to process this brutal massacre. She detonated them with terrifying ease. Meanwhile, an armed monster unleashed a furious hail of bullets at Hira. However, the warrior flawlessly dodged with absolute godly speed. The creatures were utterly bewildered. In a flash, a savage axe obliterated one beast's skull. Then, Hira suddenly teleported before Instructor Beak. First, she brutally executed the monster, guarding his right flank. Instantly, she savagely attacked Bach. A horrific slash ripped his chest. Meanwhile, Chuckbach dashed toward her mama, fiercely embracing her. Beaming with pure pride, the brave child boldly declared she never cried while apart. This innocence shattered the proud mother's heart. Both mother and daughter wept openly, overwhelmed because they intensely missed each other. Witnessing this deeply tender bond between mother and child, He questioned herself. Every time she cruelly disrespected her own mother flashed by. She could not fathom why she was so rude. Crushed by sorrow, she wept, desperately apologizing to her mother. Meanwhile, the pathetic principal utterly lost his mind. Every single beast had been entirely eradicated. Death rapidly approached his doorstep, because Hira was looming behind him after destroying Bach. Hira's suffocating aura of absolute death was intensely horrifying. Sweating profusely, the old man called the founder. He viciously shouted at the absolute peak of his lungs to awaken him. Hira swung her axe to silence him. Suddenly, she froze. A vile beast ruptured out of the die, old man's mouth, demanding why it was called. Unsettled, Hira realized this entirely deranged old fool kept a beady monster inside. Founder or not, Hira wasted zero time. She swiftly swung her bloody axe to annihilate this foul beast. Of course, this monster was notoriously tough to crack. Exactly as expected, it effortlessly stopped the annihilation. Bare hands. In brutal retaliation, the beast sprouts razor-sharp projectiles from its flesh and fires them at Hira. She desperately leaps away. Meanwhile, the wretched old man finally coughs the founder out from his own throat. It doesn't take long for the monster to realize Mama and Chuckbach are the exact prey its father has been hunting for, and it trembles with sinister thrill seeing its targets gathered. The frail old man begs for mercy, apologizing profusely for suddenly summoning the founder. But the fool never finishes. The cruel entity silences his pathetic pleas instantly by slicing his ear completely off. The beast mutates, rapidly growing massive and sprouting deadly spikes from its back. It ruthlessly unleashes a deadly barrage everywhere. Hira quickly grabs Yi, dropping to the fining ground to shield her. Simultaneously, Monster Mama tightly guards Chuck B. The instant those lethal spikes strike the room, they violently shatter everything. The cunning beast was intentionally targeting the overhead lights all along. The battleground plunges into pitch-black darkness, sparing only Mama and Chuck B's location. As Chuck B is deeply disoriented, Mama senses danger. Instinctively, she furiously lashes her fierce tentacles to strike, but she realizes it is just Hira and the human girl. Thankfully, Hira catches the deadly tentacle just in time before it pierces Yonggi. Suddenly, eerie voices echo from the shadows. Both mothers instantly enter high alert, turning to face opposite directions to guard their blind spots. Mama doubts she can unleash her full power while keeping Chuck B safe. Hira urges them to charge straight for the exit. They must secure the children. Once she hands them over to Gumdoll, she will return to slay the beast. But before moving, Mama is violently impaled by a treacherous strike. While gripping the enemy's tentacle to halt its advance, she commands Hira to take the children and flee. The vicious monster fights back fiercely. Hira makes the painful choice to sprint away, while Young Hae tightly carries Chuckbach in her arms. They leave brave Mama behind to battle the colossal, nightmare beast alone. Seeing her mother in peril, Chuckbach begins losing her mind. But then, Hira senses a chilling presence. Something far worse has just happened. Instructor Beak has vanished. This confirms their darkest fear. The bastard survived, and worse, he stands right behind her. Before Hira can blink, he unleashes a blinding flurry of slashes. She barely blocks the deadly onslaught. Both girls panic, and an overwhelmed Young Hae frantically runs for her life. Chuckbach, refusing to back down, fiercely screams to be put down. She is no coward. The ruthless bastard Bayek wastes zero time. Executing a deadly, slick maneuver, he violently pins Hira down. Mocking her struggle, he asks if she knows the mighty martial arts of the Philippines. He arrogantly boasts of mastering them as a police officer, admitting he was genuinely impressed by her rapid, unique moves earlier. But now, the tables have completely turned. He mockingly wonders what she will do to survive. Meanwhile, as Yang Hae desperately sprints with Chuck B, that creepy old man steps into her path, blocking her. Escape! But before he attacks, Young Hee's mother, Yang Ju, bursts from the shadows. She strikes the wretched old fool down with a single crushing blow. The furious mother aggressively berates the old bastard for daring to threaten her. Daughter! Overwhelmed, Yi bursts into tears seeing her mother's heroic rescue. Tossing the weapon, Yang Ju embraces her precious girl tightly. Yoni instantly sobs, endlessly apologizing and swearing she will never speak harsh words again. Meanwhile, poor Chuck B is trapped in this passionate mother-daughter embrace, getting hilariously squished. Suddenly, Gall and a squad of red-robed men storm the area. Panicking, Chuckbach desperately screams that her mother is in grave danger. Soon after, a horrifying symphony of brutal thuds, heavy strikes, and blood-curdling splatters violently echoes from afar. It is none other than poor Mama. The bastard monster has mercilessly impaled her entirely. With gaping wounds across her entire body, Chuckbach's jaw drops in pure horror. Even the red-robed men freeze in terror. At Monster Mama's grim state, they instantly prepare to execute her, raising their weapons to fire. But, before they pull the trigger, Gall furiously intervenes. He screams she is his wife. Heartbroken, Gall charges to his wife, gently lifting her up. But before he escapes, the terrifying beast silently looms right behind him. Startled by its terrifying aura, Gall freezes. Pointing her tiny finger, Chuckbach furiously screams that this is the wicked beast. As Gumdoll desperately attempts to flee, the other red-robed men unleash an explosive barrage of gunfire. Every single bullet hits, but the beast is unfazed. It stands like a bulletproof nightmare with an absolute defense. Not only does the monster shrug off the onslaught, but it violently retaliates, piercing a robed man straight through the gut with a lethal tentacle. The others desperately rush to free him, but before they can, the beast drains every drop of blood from its victim, leaving him pale and lifeless on the cold ground. The creature savors the crimson taste. Its hunger grows. Starving for more flesh, it violently unleashes its tentacles toward the remaining cultists, piercing them one by one. Each tragic victim is sucked dry, their obelisk is the tentacle of salages, empty husks crumbling to the earth. With no prey left to devour, the beast roars a chilling threat. It demands they surrender Mama and Chuckbach, swearing to show them a miracle if they obey. The moment the hiding survivors hear this dark vow, a robed woman seizes little Chuckbach. She offers the child to the monster as demanded. She pledges to capture Mama too, begging the horrifying beast to honor its word and spare the terrified townsfolk. Yet the beast finds no reason to let lowly humans live. In a flash of wrath, it plunges its vicious hand straight into Bowl, the woman's stomach, showcasing its absolute fury over them ruining the community with their selfish greed. It recalls granting them prosperity, shelter, food, and survival. Thus, in its twisted mind, it holds the absolute right to judge if its raised livestock deserves to live. The survivors tremble in pure despair, unsure of how to face this nightmare. Meanwhile, Mama remains on the ground. Her body is heavily battered and bruised. Yet, she is certain she can slaughter that creature in mere minutes. Elsewhere, Hira remains fiercely locked in combat with that bastard. Exchanging cold words, they dive back into the clash. As for Monster Mama, she returns to the fray. She swiftly grabs Chuckbach, launching her far from the abomination. Gumdoll reacts fast, catching her in midair. With Chuckbach finally safe from harm, Mama prepares to eradicate the beast. She fires a barrage of venomous needles at it, but the monster takes the strike head-on. It boasts its body lacks senses, rendering it immune to any pain. So, to it, this is a futile struggle. But Mama coldly declares that this abomination cannot escape the eternal agony waiting ahead. The beast immediately retaliates. Its tentacles deliver a devastating blow that heavily injures her. Do not forget Kay and that bastard. They remain locked in a brutal clash. From the looks of it, the vile enemy holds the clear upper hand in this bloody clash. Meanwhile, the surviving townsfolk unleash gunfire aimed right at the beast. But once again, the heavy bullets inflict zero real damage. It is as if this cursed monster is wholly invincible. Yu, however, refuses to endure a reality where her loved ones are treated like mere cannon fodder. She declares her wish for a safe haven, a village where her daughter can grow up free from terror. The monster, however, merely scoffs at her plea. Mama then decides to escalate the battle. After pelting the beast with countless venomous needles, she readies her ultimate strike. But before this clash concludes, Hira decides she is completely done playing games with her foe. She has endured enough of his arrogance and aims to end this duel permanently. In a shocking strike, Hira lands a brutal slap across the bastard's face, leaving him totally blinded. Seizing this golden opening, she seizes the fool's own weapon and unleashes a relentless, crushing barrage of deadly blows. The monster notices its body starting to crack. It had no clue, but it seems monster. Mama aimed for this from the very beginning. Realizing its grave peril, the monster flees as fast as possible in order to put safe distance between itself and the foe. Hira, meanwhile, has crushed her enemy too. Both back and the beast roar in disbelief, giving it their all against the women. Yet ultimately, both fierce ladies crush their foes. Mama impales the vile beast with her tentacles, and Hira lands a final slap across Bach's face, knocking him unconscious for good. The monster, however, refuses to fall. Even after taking a blazing hot drill straight through its chest, it somehow survives. It violently strikes back, forcing Mama to swiftly fall back for a moment. The beast then undergoes a horrifying mutation, morphing into a literal sphere of deadly spikes. But that fails to scare Mama. She charges her venomous hand-forged spear. With immense power, she obliterates the beast like a fragile watermelon. Later, the dead bodies of monsters and cultists litter the bloody earth. That old bastard is somehow still alive, cowering behind a car. Gritting his teeth, he recalls devoting his entire life to this village. Is this his grand reward? He fed and housed them, only to face betrayal. But mid-complaint, he suddenly receives a firm slap on the rear from little Chuckbach. Trembling, he turns to see Gumdoll and Chuckbach glaring at him. Later, all the weary survivors surround the miserable old man. He pathetically begs for mercy, claiming his vile actions were purely for the village. His words sway some, but never 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 and her daughter. Eyes blazing, 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 aims her firearm at the bastard's head and drills a fatal hole through his skull. He plunges into hell before anyone else. With the battle finally won, 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 collapses from sheer exhaustion. But having avenged her fallen husband, she feels a deep sense of relief and hard-earned peace. In just a few short days, the village transformed completely. The gruesome remains of the principal and the monsters were cleared away, and a quiet memorial honored the victims. The survivors agreed to firmly seal every basement passage and maintain a strict watch. However, a grim problem lingered in the shadows. They could not locate Instructor Beck's missing body. If Beck survived, his next move was terrifyingly unpredictable. Once the dark, twisted truth of this place was exposed, most villagers packed their meager rations and fled into the unknown. The doctor watched them leave in bitter frustration, knowing they should have stayed united to rebuild. Instead, they chose to run. Sometime later, inside the makeshift hospital walls, the doctor prepares a vital antibiotic injection for H. Yet, the stubborn warrior refuses the needle, complaining that it hurts. Ironically, she boldly welcomes deep battle scars but cowers before a simple syringe. Disgusted, she storms out of the ward, leaving the doctor to call the next patient. Miraculously, a temporary vaccine had been forged, halting the 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 deadly infection among the wounded. Being only a temporary shield, it requires constant injections and carries harsh side effects, but it keeps them breathing. Ultimately, their survival is entirely owed to the monster mama and her daughter. The doctor was utterly stunned to discover Chuckbach's mother was a beast, and that their unique DNA was the absolute key to his research. Meanwhile, 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 rests quietly after her intense surgery. All she needs now is to open her eyes. The doctor smiles, knowing she will rejoice at the village's peace. He is certain tears will fall when she finally embraces her daughter in their liberated home. He desperately prays for her awakening. Even as the doctor updates everyone's medical records, a heavy mystery haunts his brilliant mind. He simply cannot comprehend the bizarre, biological link between Chuckbach and her monstrous mother. The impossible test results are driving him to the absolute brink of madness. The grim scene suddenly shifts to a terrifying past event. Out in the desolate wastelands ruled by nightmarish beasts, a colossal, mutated abomination tracks the metallic scent of fresh human blood. The Crimson Trail leads directly to Instructor Beck, who stands, severely battered and trembling. He is trapped in an absolute waking nightmare. Not only is his rusted weapon completely useless, but a towering mutant blocks his path. To seal his dark fate, he is bleeding profusely, and the sweet scent of his wounds drives the beast into a starving frenzy. Suddenly, a devastating strike crushes the monster's skull. The overwhelming presence who slaughtered the beast is the yellow-eyed bastard, the sinister being they call their father. Without a shred of pity, he instantly demands a full report on the devastating events that transpired. In mere minutes, a trembling Beck explains how the village completely fell after the shocking deaths of the principal, the founding master. Having brought such monumental disgrace upon his father, Beck accepts he no longer deserves the title of son. Still, he drops to his knees, forever grateful that his father granted them life in their darkest hour. Even though they lost the sacred village bestowed upon them, Beck desperately begs his father for a fraction of the supreme power given to the other family members. He hungers for bloody revenge against their enemies. He knows his desperate plea is foolish, yet he blindly hopes to be chosen. The one-eyed bastard simply turns to 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 and mercilessly snuffs out his life in a single heartbeat. To this supreme being, 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 is nothing but pathetic trash. After swiftly executing the power-hungry failure, the yellow-eyed bastard sighs heavily. He bitterly regrets ever trusting those fragile mortals to govern Hope Village. He has lost everything, forced to rebuild his grand design from the DTM very beginning. His greatest threat now is the monster mama, who has evolved beyond expectations. He realizes time is running out. Suddenly, his sharp senses detect a shadowy figure creeping behind the rusted stair cabin. The hidden observer warns that sacrificing more family members would be a pointless bloodbath, cautioning against a reckless assault. The one-eyed bastard coldly replies that he has already calculated his next move. This time, he will descend upon the battlefield himself. The figure in the shadows nervously warns him of the catastrophic risks. Yet, the father insists fate has left him no other path. Though, he still expects loyal backup. He commands his trusted son Jack to assist him. Stepping from the darkness, Jack solemnly pledges to risk his life for his father's twisted dream. The one-eyed bastard clenches his fist, knowing that if he possessed his complete body, nothing in this world could stop him. His mind darkens, flashing back to the horrific day his flesh was mercilessly shredded while trying to assassinate the pregnant mama. That catastrophic clash cost him his physical form, but the key to his terrifying resurrection lies within the child, Chuckbach. Because Chuckbach walks completely untouched by the holy light, the one-eyed bastard is absolutely convinced she harbors his missing core. If he can just capture her mortal vessel, his master plan will finally snap into motion. Driven by this dark ambition, hunting down Chuckbach becomes his ultimate obsession. 2 tense months drift by since the horrific tragedy cursed the village, and peace finally returns to the village. The atmosphere brightens as we meet Chuckbach, looking absolutely adorable in her brand new clothes. Her parents watch with tearful, deeply moved eyes. She gives her mother a sweet kiss on the cheek, while her father playfully steals one back. Soon after, Chuckbach leaves for school. Later, she wrestles with her tough studies, but finally, solving a problem earns her a proud pat from the teacher. Yet Yang-hee faces a rougher time, getting harshly scolded by the very same teacher, who is also her own mother. While they loudly bicker, little Chuckbach quietly solves every question alone. Seeing how diligently Chuckbach worked, the teacher finally wraps up the lesson. Both girls step outside to grab some fresh air. Youngju stubbornly stays behind. With that, the two girls head out alone, ready to enjoy a fun playtime outside. But as they play, Chuckbach suddenly stumbles upon villagers who instantly grow disgusted by her presence. Recognizing her as a monster's daughter, they immediately demand she leave. They all know the dark secret of her bandaged finger. Their condescending, contemptuous glares pierce her, treating her as if she were a disgusting plague. Terrified, the poor girl bolts away in absolute panic, while these 2 malicious witches relentlessly mock her. But suddenly, Hera steps onto the scene. The loudmouths who were trash, talking just seconds ago, freeze in sheer terror. They try greeting Hera innocently, but she refuses to let them off so easily. She fiercely snaps, ordering them straight to the ground. Honestly, these two desperately need humbling for good. Meanwhile, as dawn approaches, we find poor Chuckbach sitting alone in the village, looking deeply heartbroken. Her father approaches, gently asking what is wrong. Chuckbach sadly replies she just wants to go home. Her father reminds her that returning is not safe right now. The vile monsters know their home, making any return incredibly dangerous. Chuckbach nods, but confesses a painful truth. The monsters are terrifying, but the people hurting her mom are even worse. Some locals are kind, but others are ruthlessly cruel. She passionately tells her father that her mom is purely good, a warm, kind mother who cherishes her family. Hearing their venomous insults about her mom deeply shatters her heart. Her father nods, gently reassuring his daughter that there is always a way to fix things. He explains that fear stems from the unknown. If they can reveal her mom's true, kind soul, then the soluble villagers will abandon their fear and truly love her. Later that night, as Mama prepares to head out to gather vital supplies and food, the village reactions are deeply divided. Some praise her noble sacrifice, but others glare with stubborn hatred, seeing only a monster. Thankfully, not everyone among her harsh critics is completely awful. A few kind souls step forward, proudly displaying their faith in her. Yet, Mama cannot shake her dark anxiety, weighed down by the venomous whispers. But just as the agonizing worry begins to consume her, her daughter's voice pierces the silence. She proudly declares to everyone that Mama is the absolute nicest. Gumdoll also steps up, fiercely showing his endless love and support for Mama without holding anything back. All this unexpected love makes Mama blush uncontrollably, overwhelmed by this sudden, heartwarming spotlight. It truly seems like Chuckbach's pure charm is weaving a miracle. The hostile tension vanishes, and the crowd's mood shifts. People begin to smile, feeling an unexpected wave of hope. Meanwhile, Hera is still entirely focused on punishing those two loudmouthed bullies, ensuring they learn a painful lesson in respect. The scene shifts, and we suddenly are introduced to a deadly duo. They just completely blew a monster's head off. After their bloody victory, they decide to march toward Hope Village. Dark rumors say the yellow-eyed monster hides there, and this hunter is itching to slay it. With his bare hands, the scene cuts back to little Chuckbach, happily flaunting her precious new teddy bear, which her mom and dad lovingly crafted just for her. It is a special reward for being such a wonderful girl. However, Hera is unimpressed. She bluntly states the toy lacks charm, boasting she could craft a far better one. Unfazed, Chuckbach notes the bear needs a name. She sweetly asks Hera for any good suggestions. Hera, keeping her stoic demeanor, falls into deep thought. Eventually, she breaks the silence, suggesting the name 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬, explaining that it signifies divine beauty and prosperity. Hearing this, Chuckbach's memory sparks. She vividly recalls a time when Hera, lying half unconscious, was muttering the name 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬. Chuckbach smiles warmly, responding that she absolutely loves the name, promising to cherish the toy forever. Hera softly admits the name holds precious meaning too. But before Chuckbach can uncover its origin, 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 sprints in, announcing that dangerous newcomers have arrived. For some reason, she claims her mother needs rescue. The scene then cuts to the village square, where a tense crowd gathers outside. A violent commotion echoes from the office room. The giant from before lights up, amazed by 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 working tirelessly despite her handicap. She shouts her thanks, but chokes on her own breath. Just then, Hera steps into the room. 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 introduces the newcomers. The giant is Chuckbach. Hard of hearing, he requires her to shout. The girl beside him is his daughter, 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬. At first glance, they seemed like a couple. 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 proudly introduces Hera as their ultimate weapon, alongside the adorable Chuckbach. Hera catches 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 glaring at her with bitter contempt. Unsure why she is being targeted, she unleashes a terrifying, dominant glare. The crushing pressure instantly humbles 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬, who quickly averts her eyes. Meanwhile, Chuckbach marvels at the quiet little kid. He pulls out a notebook to write her name, but mishears it as Chubby. Chuckbach happily corrects him, yet the man fails to listen, and wonders if she said Chow Chow. Chuckbach corrects him again, but he insists her name is Chuckles. Now visibly irritated, Chuckbach feels he is mocking her on purpose. She points a tiny finger at him and firmly declares it is Chuckbach. Chuckbach suddenly grabs her hand. Instantly, Hera seizes his collar. Furious at his audacity, she prepares to strike. Chuckbach hastily apologizes, claiming pure curiosity, as he was simply amazed by rumors of Chuckbach's discolored finger. But he has one more burning question. He casually asks if a yellow-eyed monster lurks here. Hera instantly senses the underlying threat. She answers with a chilling death glare. 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 quickly intervenes, begging them to stand down. She reminds them a child is watching. Hera leans in, whispering a dark question into the man's ear. What will he do if he finds this monster? Before he can reply, Gumdoll shatters the tense silence. Stepping inside, he asks for Chuckbach. As Chuckbach turns to face the newcomer, his eyes widen in shock. Gumdoll stands right before him. It takes only a second for Gumdoll to recognize his former master. To understand their blood-stained history, the scene flashes back. Gumdoll is effortlessly destroying his foes. He crushes the rival gang without breaking a single sweat. Panic consumes the enemy forces. As they realize Gumdoll is an unstoppable force of nature, his own comrades roar in absolute victory, cheering as he dominates the battlefield. But Gumdoll ruthlessly orders them to loot the fallen before they can escape. The entire gang charges with drawn blades. Apparently, Chuckbach used to be the mighty captain of that very squad before Gumdoll joined. Now, Chuckbach mocks Gumdoll for tying his fate to a fearsome monster. As the old man runs his mouth, 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 gathers her courage. She hesitantly asks Gumdoll if he does not regret it. Confused, Gumdoll asks what she means. 𝒁𝑶𝑴𝑩𝑰𝑬 reminds him of the grim reality. By marrying the monster, he became prey for the cannibal tribe. They will inevitably hunt him down, and he will have to risk his life to protect his family. Does he regret choosing this dangerous path? Hearing this, Gall falls silent. His mind drifts back to the helpless monster mama, fighting desperately to shield her newborn child. The scene shifts back almost 6 years into the past. Gall secretly slips away to meet his monster wife. But one day, Yu-jung questions his sudden departure. He quickly fabricates an excuse, claiming he must patrol the area to ensure their absolute safety. Promising a swift return, he leaves an annoyed Yu-jung behind. Her father teasingly suggests that Gall is sneaking off to see a secret lover. This bitter thought twists Yu-jung's heart. However, the truth is far more complex. Gall actually visits the monster mama and her fragile little child. Their bond is barely forming, leaving the beast highly cautious. But Gall gently reassures her. He only brought essential survival goods. He quietly places the precious cargo in the shadows. Baby formula, warm clothes, and blankets. Gumdoll turns and walks away. Yet, instead of leaving, he hides behind a ruined wall, secretly observing the monster mama's reaction to his humble gifts. Just as hoped, the beast is overwhelmed with pure joy. Witnessing this heartwarming scene fills Gall's heart with absolute warmth. Captivated by her smile, he slowly gave her his heart. Days and nights blur together. They spend more time together, unknowingly forging a much stronger bond. Throughout it all, Chuckbach keeps growing. Gall suddenly realizes how deeply attached he has become to her. The realization makes him blush. All the while, the rival gang keeps a very close watch on Gall's actions. One day, Gumdoll returns to the monster mama and discovers that the baby has caught a fever. The giant panics, rushing out with all his strength to find medicine. If he arrives too late, he might lose. Chuckbach, desperately racing through the desolate city, he suddenly falls into a deadly enemy ambush.